but you
Okay.
guys. Oh, hi everybody.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Costumeco channel. But we're also like simulcasting. I don't know if that's the proper word on the Tony Teflon's Teflon TV and on P Pepper's channel. So hello, everyone. This is really fun. We also have Phil the Issues Guy here with me as well. Phil, I've never had you on my show. I'm so happy you're here.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
And I have P Pepper's back. We had him on. We were talking about Silo a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago or so. And I had Tony on just a few weeks ago. We were doing a fun little gossip episode. So welcome all. I'm going to just go around and let everyone say hello. Who wants to start?
Pete does. Pete double.
Okay. Pete, you start. Everyone's being shy. Pete, go ahead.
All right. Hey, Pete Peppers here. We're going to talk mid-season Severance. I cover this on my channel. If you're here through that, you probably know already, but hoping to get into, like, I think where we're at right now, what I'm most interested in is that the early stuff that was out there, like, is it really Helena or Heli, and what was going on with the Ortbo and all of that sort of taken care of at this point. So like, it's fun. We're at a fun point because now we can really start to theorize about what's going to happen for the rest of the season in a way that those things were kind of taking up all the space before. So yeah, I'm happy to be here talking to some different people and getting some different perspectives on where everything might go in the second half of the season.
Mm-hmm. And I met Pete. I was mentioning this last time we got together that I stalked him online like I usually do with people. And I messaged him on Twitter. He was lovely. He responded to me. I was like, wow, he responded to me. And I've been a big fan of his channel for a while. I think Severance was the first show I saw you cover probably about 3 years ago before everyone kind of now has just, embraced it, loves it. And what about you, Tony? How you doing? What have you been up to?
What's going on? You know what it is. I'm Don Tony Teflon. I'm back at you. Another one. Man, Phil the Issues guys, rocking with me as always. I am here rocking with man Pete Double and my girl Heidi, costumeco. Everyone out here on Teflon TV. Give that thumbs up to everybody's channel and all that. And I'll have the links to everybody's channel in the description. When it comes to Severance and everything, again, I am not a Severance scholar. I will be by next year, but I look more into the what is the end game to this thing and how things are going to play out. And that's what I'm most interested in. Like, not even for this season. I'm interested in for seasons beyond. Like, how are they going to play it? Because when it comes to this show, and I hear all this praise about this show, one of the greatest shows made of all time, comparing it to The Wire, comparing it to The Sopranos. And I think you had a really good, amazing first season, amazing ending. Second season's going good, but to compare it to those shows, it's gotta keep going. So let's see if they can maintain the momentum, and still after they reveal certain things, will it still be the same show that we had when we first got it? So that's what I'm most interested in. Everything else. Phil the Issues guy, let them know where you at.
Hey everybody, Phil the Issues Guy. I am not streaming right now, but I am excited to be here and really excited to be with all these people to talk about Severance. I was really busy at the beginning of the season, so I just binged watched the 5 episodes over the last couple of days. So everything's relatively fresh with me, but it's still a big hodgepodge, so I'm playing a lot of catch up. Not to mention what you said, Heidi, is kind of interesting about 3 years ago. It's part of like this wait in between these seasons and getting everything to kind of come back together. But these 5 episodes were great, and I can't wait to unpack this and get into this as well and talk about what's actually happening. But what I really love just right away about this show is just the tone of it. I've always been a fan of Ben Stiller as a filmmaker, and I don't know much about the other creator, but you can obviously see the episodes that he directs in the style and the sense of humor that is embedded on every part of this show, and the way that the soundtrack mixes with everything. It just creates such an interesting atmosphere. I love this show, and I love the first season, and this second season, we'll get into my thoughts on it, but doing pretty good so far.
Thanks so much, Phil and Tony and Pete. It was really interesting. The other day, I saw this YouTuber that I follow, and he had made a comment saying, instead of like watching the big shows like House of the Dragon or Severance, or he named a couple of the big shows, he said, why don't you check out some smaller shows just to give them an opportunity? And Ben Stiller commented on his comment and said, "Oh my God, we're one of the big shows." Like he was kind of shocked that he put him up there with like House of the Dragon or some of these other bigger shows. So I thought that was really cool. And I think the fact that the showrunners themselves are so like kind of blown away how this show is taken off, right? I'm sorry. And just also just like Apple TV is just like, you know, I think Pete and I were talking about this last time we were together about just the quality of the shows that we're seeing on that network. So, so where do we want to start? Like, so Pete, do you want to talk about maybe where we began at the beginning of the season versus where we are? And we won't get into any spoilers past episode 5. So if anybody hasn't seen up to episode 5, you're fine, right? You have seen up to episode 5. We won't get anything past that. So what about you, Pete? You want to talk a little bit about where we've been and where we're going, or where you think we're going?
Yeah, I think that, at the start of this season, the big question was, what's going to happen after the OTC? Like, how do they come back to work? How could they ever send Helly back down into the basement after what happened? What's going on with the Miss Casey? That once we found out that she's actually Mark's wife, or we don't know what's going on with her, I guess, but we know that Gemma is there's a part of Gemma in there at least, right? So I thought for the first half of the season they had a lot of work to do to kind of make all that make sense and set everything up, and I think they did a pretty good job of that all the way around. And now that we're in the second part of the season, we're really starting to figure out, because I mean, they've said things like they think that they could off ramp this at the end of season 3, or like at the end of a season 6. They have one of those kind of statements, where they might do it, they could do a longer version or a shorter version, but it's only so much story. And it's been a big question. And this is something we were talking about on my live stream a few days ago. It's always been hard to figure out where this ends up. You know what I mean? And right now, I guess where we're at is like, where does this season end up? My thinking is that it's going to be, we're seeing this, this Cold Harbor project is so important. And we know that at the end of the last episode, he was 85% complete, and he did about 4 or 5% in that one episode. So that's going to come to an end. And to hear everybody else talk about it, and at least this is my interpretation, and I'll be interested to hear what you guys think. Like, once that's done, Mark's purpose for them seems like it's also done, and MDR in general, which, that's what this show's been about. So then what does it become about? Or how does that not happen? Or like, that's sort of where we're at, I think.
Yeah. I think we know whatever he's doing is, what is it? Mysterious and important. It's very serious. And I agree. I think Mark is he's just not going to be as important once he finishes Cold Harbor, whether Cold Harbor has something to do with his wife or not. I mean, I'm sure we'll unpack that a little bit, or at least maybe I'm already giving in what I think of that situation. But I do think this season was up against it, because the end of last season was at such a high point, such a intense moment of apex, that it really needed to figure out, as you were saying, everything after the OTC. And I think they've done a good job of sort of cleaning that all up and setting a new standard for where we are right now. So I do think this season and the end point of this season will probably be the conclusion of Cold Harbor. But it's something we were talking about briefly before we went on. This show doesn't waste any time. I wouldn't be surprised if it's next episode or episode 7 that we get the conclusion of that, and this season goes a step further than I could imagine, because they don't, and we were saying this earlier, they don't waste time. They build things up and they actually pay them off pretty quickly. This is how you do a mystery box show.
Yeah, when you deal with Mark and everything else, and why Mark? Why did they pick Mark of all people to do it? And why is Mark's wife involved in that whole situation? Heidi, I've seen you and I know you, so I'm going to take you seriously, Heidi, on this. All right, I see it. So maybe you don't take me serious. So I'll say it like Tracy Morgan will say it. I'll say it like that. Heidi, don't you be putting me in that solo box. All right, keep me right where I'm at. I don't want to be solo. I know you're the solo queen, but don't solo me. I want to be in the background. All right, so keep me back here. I'm soloed down. So it comes down to, why did they choose Mark's wife? Why did they choose to take this woman, either fake her accident, but then and bring her in there if the accident was fake, if she was in there, or they just kidnapped her and staged the whole accident and then took somebody else's body and put it in there to make him believe that she's dead. Why did they pick her? And then is that the reason why they picked Mark and put Mark in there? Is it a bloodline situation that they're dealing with them? And why does Mrs. Wong look like she could be Mark and her child? Like they could have picked any race of person to do it, but to pick the race of a child that does look like if Mark and his wife had a child, it has to be significant that they did that. So when I look at this show, and especially as y'all saying, when Cole Harbor file ends, how does that conclude Mark's thing? And is Mark actually the hero that we think he is? You know, is he really the person that we believe that he is, or is he just another person that's leading us astray that we've seen it from this show already?
Well, I was going to mention that the last episode of the season is called Cold Harbor. So I'm wondering if maybe that's when we're expecting that to Pete, what do you think about that? Like perhaps that's when we're going to see a conclusion.
I think that's a pretty smart guess. I think the other thing that we have to keep in mind is that, you know, reintegration is on the menu at this point too. That's something that could derail whatever Lumen's plans are. If Mark is becoming fully reintegrated, which I kind of think makes sense for the end of the season too, since we introduced that in the third episode, you know, we got a lot of room to you know, kind of figure out what that is and how that's going and have him finish that. So yeah, I think that's sort of where the conflict comes, is like, will him being reintegrated, you know, how does that change what they have planned whenever the file's done or whatnot?
I thought it was interesting.
Someone in the comments is saying what we're forgetting Cobell, and that's another thing. Like she hasn't shown up or done anything significant for a while, so that's another thing to take into consideration towards the end of the season, because, you know, it's not like they're going to keep Patricia Arquette on the bench for the whole season.
No, when was the last time we saw her? Was when she was asking for her job back, correct?
Yeah.
And she ran away because it looked, you know,
because she's a runaway. Yeah, I see people in the comments. Can I say what up to some people in the comments? I see people up in here rocking with the Don Tony Teflon. I don't know. Do I have? I don't have highlight ability. You have to highlight.
You can you not highlight them?
Cannot highlight.
Do you want? Which one do you want me to highlight?
No, I'll just go through some of these names in here and say
what. You go ahead.
Who are there. What up to Megan, Alyssa? What up to John Answers up in the building, rock with us. Guy Incognito. Carlos is in the building, rock with my girl Luna Cascade is up in this piece, rock with us. Amanda is in here. My man Edward Martin is in this piece. Christine Jellybean is in here. The Jam Master is up in this piece. And Mary Sue is up in here. And our boy Justin from Top Shelf Fandom. It's here. Now, someone just said, Carlos just said Severance is the new Lost. I hope not. That's blasphemy, Carlos. Let's not say it's the new Lost. Lost was a great show. I watched the first few seasons but it again, this is a show that was good, but lost its way, it seemed. And I don't know if they have that same problem, because dealing back then with network television, when you had to come up with so many episodes year after year, I don't think they had the chance to flesh out everything or think it through. We see this show is taking 2 years. So I think they have a lot more time to work on things and make sure everything fits, other than Lost, not the way Lost had to, because they had to keep popping out episodes.
See, I wonder how someone uses that as a descriptor. If they mean the captivating mystery box show that everyone's talking about, yes. If you're talking specifically about the way that it chose to do storytelling, no. The Lost better comparison would be maybe Orange is the New Black, when you like focus on a single episode, single character every episode, and you kind of unlock the story through that means. Severance is much more of a different kind of mystery box show, even in its presentation and its development. But if you mean it's like the new hotness, the new mystery box show everyone's sort of obsessed with, then yes, it is in that definition. The way that Lost sort of captivated people, I can accept that as a comparison, or like I can see that being apt.
I was going to say, someone said, Sickhead says because I did feel there's a bit of a parallel, Tony, because you're a huge Fromville person. I don't know what you call it, a Fromvillian. What do you call yourselves?
I'm Familia. That's my
Familia. That's it. Sorry, Familia. Pete, you haven't watched From, have you?
Yeah, I've watched it. I don't cover
Yeah.
it, but I
Yeah.
was
But it
kind of
has
like
that
slow
sort
to
of
come
same.
around on it.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say I was a little slow to come around on it, but by the end of the last season, I was pretty. I mean, I was watching week to week and paying attention pretty closely. I thought what like was because I mean that's someone who worked directly and was pretty key in the writing room for Lost, right? I mean,
Damon Linda.
not Lindelof, but I can't think of his name.
Is it Jack Bender? Jack Bender?
It's the showrunner, and I can look it up, but
Jack Bender is the guy that was there.
Okay, but the thing about like if you think about Lost, like I really like The Leftovers, right? You mentioned Lindelof.
Someone else
like,
mentioned
Lindelof,
that. Yeah.
Oh, that's what I thought you were talking about. I thought you were talking about Leftovers.
Yeah, he came out with that. He came out with that show, and the thing was let the mystery be, right? Like it was, we're going to, we're not going to answer this. At the end, you're not going to know the answer to the why of why this happened. Like that's how he sort of went with mystery after Lost, sort of a reaction. And I think that from it, the thing there is like, you don't know what's going on necessarily. Like there's all this crazy mystery and everything else, but it's really more about how the people not knowing what's going on is what's compelling about it for me. Like this guy said, I'm not going to say that I'm not going to answer your questions, but what if instead of like, instead of just being in the mystery, let's talk about how that mystery is like really affecting these people who are, living through it, because they have no idea. It's all completely irrational and they're just stuck in this place and they don't know what to do about it. So those are different ways you can deal with mystery. I think what Phil said, makes a lot of sense as far as how this is like it seems like Severance is very conscious of the idea of what's gone wrong with mystery box shows and what people have grown tired about related to them. And it doesn't have any baggage or any other thing to deal with. It's just saying that like the right way to do it is to bring things up, give everybody who's really paying attention a little bit of something every week, so they always feel like they're getting closer to the answers rather than just trying to surprise them with the next mystery. And we'll see how it all plays out, but I think there are some major differences there.
Yeah, they definitely give us payoff though too, right? Like I felt like Phil was talking about this, Pete, about how we do get answers, and it's sort of like silos. How there's more questions maybe than answers sometimes, but with this show, I do feel like we feel satisfied, and I think that's one of the things that as fans we love to have these mysteries, but at the same time we want to have these payoffs, at least at some point, like at pivotal points. So how do you think that they're doing so far with that? Tony, you want to talk about that a bit?
I think that, they're not giving you too much. And that's a problem. I can think of it like a trailer, right? If you watch a trailer you don't want the whole movie in the trailer. You don't want to watch the trailer and go to the movie and start seeing this whole thing. So I think they're doing a good job at that, just giving you a little bit here and a little bit there, but not too much, And again, when you deal with shows like From or Lost and everything else, you have to answer some questions. Now, you have to answer questions that you put forth before you should actually put more questions out there. And I think that when shows lose their way is they have questions, they have the questions there, then they put new questions before they give you the answer to the old questions, right? So I think you really got to answer these questions, and I think that they have done a good job on that with the Helenus thing. They've answered that question, they got that done. People speculated on that whole situation, you got that done. So as long as they continue doing that, I think they'll be fine I think they'll be fine going forward. But to me, that's the key. You can't just pile question after question after question and then not answer anything, or just give one little lame answer, and then that's all we get, and we got to wait.
I also feel like this show answers questions in a really good sense of humor, like what they did with the goat scene, and Brienne of Tarth as the goat herder, and that I thought that was amazing. And people have been asking for answers to that. If that's all I ever hear about the goats, I'm absolutely okay with that, because if you could set up what they said earlier about some armies or like people having misconceptions about each team going through some stuff is good to have a deeper mystery. Some stuff I like just kind of being on the head. Okay, this just explains itself. There's a room full of goat people, and all that kind of stuff.
It's weird. It's fun, you know.
It's weird. It's fun. It's Twin Peaksy. It's just in the background. There's a little goat being pet by Brienne, and it would have been great if the Hound came in there and shouted at her for a second. You know, asked for some chicken. It would have been pretty fun. But I like how this show maintains its dark humor or its theater of the absurd, its bald soprano vibe to it a little bit going on, and it never loses that. And I think Ben Stiller, that's a staple of some of his work since The Cable Guy, and he brings that kind of tone to this. And even the music for each scene can almost be seen as a joke, as like the Curb Your Enthusiasm music popping up, dun 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 dun, dun, like even in the most ridiculous things, that Severance music just eerily seeps in there. It's great.
What about you, Tony? Do you actually, Pete, I think I meant to go to you next. Did you want to sort of talk about this? I think it was just what Phil was just saying.
Sorry, I was looking into the writer who I mentioned before. I pasted his.
Someone wrote it here. It was it? Someone wrote it in the chat, I think.
I'm not sure the pronunciation on his last name.
Javier?
Javier is his first name.
Yeah. Grillo. I won't say that name. I'll butcher it.
Yeah. That's what I was just doing when you were talking to me. Sorry. I was like, can I try to pronounce it? I don't think it's a good idea. Like, I don't think it's going to turn out well.
One of the things I want to say about this show, in terms of it, you know, it's definitely up there with any feature film, like the cast, the production design, the acting.
Yeah, it's got a really high standard as far as the craft involves, for sure.
Absolutely. So one of the things I was thinking about just when I was writing down a few notes regarding the last episode is the writing. And of course, the showrunner is also the writer. And he just has a very interesting, I don't know how we call it, VOP or voice. He's got a very unique voice, I think, in his writing. And one of the things that when Phil and I and you guys were talking before we came on is just some of the absurdity, as he was saying. So for instance, I was just laughing, like during that one scene when they're doing Milchek is having his evaluation. And the one guy, Mr. Drummond, says contretemps, like earlier when he was speaking with Helena and Natalie, and they're talking about, should we tell your father or not? And he said contretemps, which I looked up as just a minor dispute or a disagreement, which is just so funny and absurd because, you know, she was nearly drowned. And it didn't really fit with it. And I just thought that was so literary to do that. And then, of course, we were talking about when Milchek, he uses, his words are too big. And then he immediately kind of starts using big words. And then he hands them the lunch menu. It was just like such a riot. So what do you think about the writing on this show? What do you think about the way that they use humor on this show? It's, you know, honestly, you could just even put aside the puzzle box and just have so much fun just with the way that this show presents itself. Phil, we can start with you if you want, or sorry, Pete, if you want to go ahead.
It's okay.
I've been talking about that a lot, so I'll just say one quick thing about just to add on to with the scene you were just talking about. I like how a little touch of when they're talking about the other things they're complaining about him, and just all the humor and the dark humor they're doing between Milchek and Mrs. Wong. Those two have such an interesting chemistry, and they're balancing off each other. And this actress, I tend to sometimes be hard on child actors when they're just not the best. You know, I'll point it out, but she's doing a great job playing this part and doing all this like, awkward, dark, absurdity kind of vibe. And she's just adding so much comedy. So I think that's what's important, is taking that voice of the author that is so important. And I think the marriage between him and Ben Stiller just creates this magic of the humor. It brings that Stiller family humor into it. Serenity now, and it's part of it. I feel like Frank Costanza would have made a guest appearance. Jerry's still alive. Like they would have found a way to get him in that goat room or something like that, screaming on the top of the shelf. I think that this show balances that better than most shows, but the humor is both subtle and obvious. They do the whole myriad of humor on this.
What about you, Pete? Are you like, do you ever sort of just like fall off your couch laughing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was one of the big hooks was in the first season, because the first season developed pretty slow considering, you know, and I think one of the things that was hard for me at first was the outside world wasn't maybe as, you know, it was sort of like the Yellow Jackets problem, like where you just want to go back to the woods and be with the teenagers because they're way more interesting, you know. And it was sort of like that with the outside world in the first season of Severance, at least in the beginning. So like that was the thing that was one of the big hooks for me, was just the way, like, obviously the premise of making them, you know, making them full grown functioning adults that just don't have experience, so that they, you know, so they're childlike and they have this innocence that, you know, obviously that's what opens the door to that. But also, you know, just like the little things, like everything that like Irv knows comes from the handbook, like just, you know, until they get the UUR. So the way they talk, he sounds like the handbook, you know what I mean? And yeah, there's so many, they really use that to great effect, I think. And the other thing about it is that it's a dark show. Like what's going on is really dark when you think about it. So I think that having all those funny lines, and you know, Dylan is my favorite. He just is always dropping different lines that'll make you crack up, and like I think that's pretty necessary to make the whole thing work.
But what about you, Tony? What are you thinking? Speaking of Dylan,
I'm sorry, but maybe y'all people in the chat, you don't know who I am. Maybe I know. I see your comments. Usually don't look at the comments. I see your comments, and I see your McFish, and in the comments you're making in there. So let me address McFish real quick, because he wants to be put on blast real quick. Now, you said that I said that this child looked like it would be a child. Miss Wong looks like a child that it could be Mark, and a child that looks similar. And you said something that, well, she's from Nepal, so that can't be. Well, you look at the people from Nepal, I mean, they look Asian. I mean, that is what they look like. If you watch the movie The Golden Child with Eddie Murphy, the main lady was from Nepal. She was Asian. If you look at The Golden Child itself, she was Asian, right? So it doesn't matter what your ethnic background is as an actor. They have had white people in movies play Egyptians, all right? So that has nothing to do with it. What I was talking about was her look, and that was it. It doesn't matter what her nationality actually is, all right? That's what it is. They have had white people play black people in blackface, all right, in Hollywood. So that does not mean, so it means nothing to what you're saying. As for the people over here, and just the comedy aspect in it, what I like about the comedy aspect in it is that it's not overt. It's not like there's a comedian over there. It seems like natural comedy, natural things that actual people would actually say. You know, in some movies, I would say, you know, when you deal with like the Avengers, all of a sudden you got Captain America making a joke, or Thor making a joke. Like, no one can't see that, right? So these jokes that they put out there seem like actual jokes, not comedic, not jokes. Like they seem like actual jokes that someone would say in a natural situation and everything else. So that's what I feel about the comedy. I do like the comedy in it just for that reason, the simplicity of it more than anything.
I was laughing. Here's they were saying that Irving, where'd it go here? That he scored in the high 60s or something, like whatever that. Do you remember that? They made a comment about how he, you know, the reason why he was so popular. He got 67% popular or something like that. By the way, speaking of, we were talking about Milchek, one of the things I absolutely loved, and I was like, if I ever worked at a company that did this, I would be so happy.
How he messes up paper clips by putting them on the front, like that is horrifying.
Well, but when they do the performance review, they give him a book, like they actually, and they do it like in all these interesting fonts, and they you know break, like they put together
it's
a
big
really
too.
big,
It's big. It's not a small pamphlet or a couple of pages. It's a book.
And basically it reiterates everything that they said to him verbally, which I gather is like a 4 to 6 hour review of some kind because it goes past lunch, right? So they have to take a break. So I'm assuming it's so they've compiled it all into sort of sound bites into this nice little book.
It's like laminated too. It's really nice.
It's like, beautiful. Like I'm
beautiful.
thinking that's a lot of work. So I'm wondering, is there a company that actually does something like that? Does anyone know?
It was that Miss Wong is the one who's talked about the paper clips, right?
Yeah, she complained about the excessive
she's
words.
For sure a rat. She ratted him out and the big words.
She snitched on him for sure.
Yeah, she said he uses too many big words.
That's definitely her.
No, by the way, someone else commented that she's 18. She may be 18 in real life. She's not 18 in the show, in my humble opinion. She's supposed to be a child. They
shot the season 3 years ago too.
Yeah, exactly. So they've made multiple comments like, why is there a kid here? So, that's just, whatever. If the actress is 18, I don't think it has.
I'm guessing the character is 12 to 15.
For sure. Yeah. She's a young adult.
Do you think that she's chipped up too? I mean, how do you have a child?
This is the question, right? Who is she?
How does she have a child working in this company at that? I mean, there has to be some type of age laws and everything else. I mean,
not if she's born in the system, Tony. If she's like born in the system as sort of like a severed being that was maybe born and raised in the basement or in the severed universe, or a clone of somebody, or whatever. If we want to go all deep down that road, it's possible to think that she never saw the light of day. I'm not saying that's true necessarily, but maybe no one ever knows about her and she's just bred within the system.
I was going to say that, I talked about this before with Pete, that sometimes it feels like she's an adult in a young person's body, but I have met young adults who are like that, who are very precocious and intelligent. And, so it's possible she's been indoctrinated since she was young. We know, like, by the way, I put a note in my notes when I noticed there's a scene when it's Helly R gets off the elevator and then Miss Wong is sitting there waiting for her and she's wearing this uniform. And it kind of reminded me of a Nazi youth kind of uniform a little bit, like she's wearing a white blouse with a skirt and the knee socks and the little Mary Jane shoes. And then also just sort of the way she ratted out Milchek, like her superior, she ratted him out to the uppers. It sort of reminded me of the Nazi youth. I don't know if anybody else is getting Nazi. Oh, there's one other Nazi sort of thing I was going to ask you all about. There were several references to the innies being subhuman.
Yeah, not
human or being animals. And we've heard that language before. So does anybody have any opinion on that? Am I going too far on this?
Nazi wasn't the thing that I went to, but culty was what I was thinking.
Sure. Okay.
Those two things they're the same though. That Nazism is cultish as well. So there's definitely some crossover there. You know what I mean? But like, I think I can't, this is one of those things I can't talk about too much because I've seen episode 6 and there's a little bit more information in that one. But my initial thought as things went on was that I felt like I thought this was cult related and that she had been, this is what I've been saying for the last few weeks, is that I think that she was born into the cult more than the corporation, but we'll find out a little bit more. The other thing was Tony asked if she was chipped up. The one thing that I didn't think so, like that wasn't my natural guess, but a lot of people were bringing that question up. My reasoning was that she was management, but then I thought that was a telling kind of thing that she said in this episode about how they're not people, because then she would also be talking about herself in that situation, which is kind of, I think, a hint that she's just like the other management people, that they're not. I don't believe any of them are severed, Cobell or Milchek or her.
So you think at the end of the day she leaves and goes somewhere?
Yeah, that was my assumption.
Yeah, Carlos said more Russian-like than Nazi-like, because we were talking about last episode how they were wearing those Russian uniforms, those Russian hats and coats. Sorry, Tony, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I think when you deal with the Nazis, I understand why. It does seem that. I agree with the cult situation. I think that when she says that, the way she says that is just to say that how a lot of corporations feel about their workers. A lot of corporations, they won't say it out loud, but they use people up, they abuse them, they'll get you in there to unload trucks and do everything else. But in the end, you're expendable. They'll get rid of you, you die, and then they'll bring somebody in right to replace you. And I think it was more of a fact that that Milchek is actually, it seems like I didn't think he was a good guy. I really didn't in the beginning, but it seems like he genuinely might be a good guy and genuinely might care too much about these people, and that would be his downfall. As we've seen in the end, in the scene with him and Mark after he said he's going to stricken up. I think the most telling scene about that, when you look at the scene with him and Mark and stuff in the elevator, is that they purposely put a line in between them. If you look at the back of the elevator, you can see that line is right there.
I got a picture of it
right
here.
And he sticks his head right across the line, like he's crossing the line into his personal space. And I think that is what they were trying to show, that now he's willing to cross the line in order to do what he has to do to save his job, because he also had a situation in the job when he was dealing with Natalie that a lot of Black people deal with in jobs, that that is a situation that you have to go above and beyond. And when he got the picture of Kier as a Black person and blackface, basically, that offends you. And I think that really, in the Black community, they would say you got your N-word moment, right? You realize that that's what people view you as, and that's what they're looking at you as. And I think that's what happened to him when he got that picture and he realized that's what he was. So now he has to go above. He can't just be the person he wants to be. He has to be more online, unless he's going to lose his job.
Yeah, I was wondering if he was looking at Natalie as an ally, and then she didn't give it to him. She didn't give him that.
I thought she did. I thought she gave him enough to know that he's on board, from the look that she can't say nothing. But if you looked at the way that her face looked, I took it as that she said, yes, I agree with you, but I can't say nothing. So, just let's keep it moving and stuff.
Yes. So nonverbal.
Yes.
Oh, that's what she's saying. Sorry, Phil, go ahead. I interrupted you.
Oh, no. Just to continue on with that, they definitely, the people that aren't severed, whether you want to use that term for it or just say an elitist, a cultist kind of attitude, there is an us and them. And through most of the people don't feel like Milchek was trying to present. They feel more like what Mrs. Wong said under her breath, and how Corbell is Patricia Arquette's character. How she treats everybody. They don't really care. They're subspecies. They're not real. They're make-believe creatures. It's play games. These are nothingness. We made these things. We destroy them. It goes into everything with John Turturro's character, with Irv passing away in this episode, and the perspective of that from her within that, of like, no, screw that, no one died. This is nothing. This is a joke. And I think that's what they look at it as. They're better than them ultimately, whether that's, and they don't really have a life that matters. And the tactic of him being nice to them was part of the review. You're being too nice to them. Your tactics for being nice isn't working, and it's not stopping them from asking questions. So he obviously presented to them, if we treat these people better, take them on some adventures, do some good stuff, add some more fruit, forget the honeydew and bring other melon in, they'll be very, very happy, and they'll forget about asking these questions. And that did not work.
Yeah, I actually was going to say regarding Natalie, because there was actually a really great meme of her, Tony. I don't know if we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but on the last episode or whenever she was presented those paintings, her smiling, people were posting it on social media, and there was some confusion about why she was smiling, because someone said it was the most disturbing smile they had ever seen. And then people got really angry because she has a beautiful smile, obviously, but there was so much behind that smile. So so she's a very wonderful nonverbal actress, I think.
100%. I agree. And back to the cult thing, I really think that this like they are like using like Sam Walton, the one who invented Walmart, as a topic for Kier. I really believe, if you look at Sam Walton had a brother, wasn't a twin brother, but he did have a brother. And if you ever worked, I don't know if people in the chat, if you ever worked in like a distribution center, a Walmart distribution center, I have worked in there. Worked there for 7 years of my life and stuff. And I remember one time I got sent to HR. And when I got sent to HR, I was talking to the guy, and the guy gave me Sam Walton's autobiography. And he said, I want you to read these chapters. And when you come back tomorrow, I'm going to talk to you about these chapters. And every time you bring up, they always will say, well, Sam Walton did this. Well, Sam Walton did this. Well, Sam Walton was this. And it was always like that there. So I really think that they're using Sam Walton as like someone for care, that the way Sam Walton, if you walk into Walmart, it is, I want to say it's a cultish, but it's not far from it. It's not far from when you go up in there. And when you deal, like when you go, if you own a franchise for McDonald's and you buy that franchise, you are sent to a school and they say you have to get McDonaldized.
Yeah, clown.
That's the word. That's the word that they use. You must get McDonaldized.
Hamburger College, I think.
Yeah, Hamburger University. There's a
Hamburger University. Yeah.
So I believe that this is something that they're using those things and taking it to the extremes with Severance and stuff. But I think they're using those things and putting it into the show.
Just quick side note, I love how my favorite real commercial I've ever seen in my life now is how YouTube is filled with these Severance commercials for Recruiter. Has anyone seen these? Like, I don't want to like
no
like, because most people skip commercials or have ad.
Hi, Justin.
But now that I've said this, you'll all see it. They've like for Severance videos, like if I'm watching Tony or Heidi or Pete's videos on Severance, and I go to click on it right before they'll do an ad for Severance. It's a meal check or something for ZipRecruiter. If you come work at Lumen. It's something like that. It's a pretty hilarious commercial and it's fun tie-in.
Yeah, I know in the podcast they did a couple of those, the official podcast that Ben Stiller and Mark do together, Adam Scott. There's definitely some. It seems a little funny, you know what I mean? Because they're satirizing this whole thing, this whole idea of work, and yet ZipRecruiter is paying them probably a pretty high premium to advertise their employment agency or whatever that is technically.
I bet you that Ben Stiller played this game Dark Tower. I guarantee it. There's a sound in there during the show and it goes dun 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 dun, and you hear that sound. I have the game right here. I had it since the 80s. It was my father's favorite game. Me and my family played all the time. It's the exact sound, same digital sound as the Dark Tower game. They took that sound from that Dark Tower game in the 80s. No doubt about it that they put that in. I've heard that sound my whole life. And it's just dun 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 dun. And that's when you get defeated and stuff, you get that sound. And I know that they did that. I know Ben Stiller put that in there because I bet you if anyone gets a chance to interview Pete, you'll be the one. You get a chance to interview Ben Stiller. Ask him if you ever played that. I guarantee you will say yes. I guarantee it. There's no doubt.
That's awesome. Hey, can we talk about the beginning of this episode with the like I thought it was a dentist. It looked like he was wearing an old-fashioned dentist uniform, in my opinion. But I love the way they blocked out his face, and then the dental instruments, and then of course he went to wherever that perpetuity, or was that wing he went to? Not the perpetuity wing, the one with
optics
the
and design.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, optics and design. But then he left and he went down that hallway with the elevator, right? So, what was everyone's thoughts on this?
I think when dealing with it, and they showed the whole teeth room, and then they showed these tools with the teeth. I think it could have something to do with Mark's wife, because obviously, if someone is burnt to that point that she should have been burnt, or he couldn't recognize her in a car accident, you would have to have some form of dental records of somebody to identify the body of this person and stuff. So I think that it's possible that they are into teeth before that purpose, that they have killed people or are able to kill people and have these teeth molds of these people, so that they have to do something like that, like they did to Mark's wife, that they are able to use that for identification of the body.
Oh, that's very interesting. Pete, what were your thoughts on that whole thing?
I thought, the whole time I was like, why aren't they showing this guy's face? That was the main thing that I was thinking about. And then I was, the dental tools, I just figured, yeah, that was something for the testing floor. I saw in the comments of my video, though, a lot of people had this idea that the instruments were for carving, the watermelon. Like
that's funny.
Wax carving tools, but I don't think that's true. But I think it's a funny theory.
Actually, the carving tools don't look like that anyway. They look like they're more like loops or whatever. And
that's what I would have thought.
Yeah. But you said that actually, I think when I watched your video, you said there's a well-known actor playing that character. Like on IMDb, they did identify him.
Yeah, it's in the credits. Robbie Benson is credited, but he doesn't. There's no he doesn't show up in the episode. So the only person whose face they hide the whole time is this guy. And yeah, so you know
what would be
Robbie
really
Benson?
funny though is if he doesn't actually end up on the show, that was just him behind that that shelf, and they actually never.
That would actually be pretty funny if they never
like
show the guy's face.
Us. Yeah, it's Robbie. I love Robbie Benson. Like he was in Ice Castles. I don't know if I've talked about Ice Castles before. It's one of my favorite movies.
Robbie Benson, he's a weird character for me because I know the name, like it's a household name, but I really couldn't have told you. Like when I looked at his IMDb credits, like I knew like Running Brave or whatever. I remember that movie when I was a kid or something, but a lot of his stuff was, I mean, he was a teen idol. So like I wouldn't have known him from that part of his career in the same way.
But as you mentioned them, most people would know him as the Beast from Beauty and the Beast.
But his voice he's pretty,
iconic,
he's done a lot of voice work for that and a lot of related stuff for Disney.
Yeah. So anyway, so we'll see if that plays out or not. That would be really interesting. I mean, because we've got like I was watching that scene with Irv and Bert, and I'm like, oh my God, we've got these two amazing actors here, like playing against each other. It was so great. And someone was asking if maybe Bert's wife or Bert's husband, I should say, might actually be the dentist. That would be interesting. That would be quite the.
I do like the dark sense of humor of having like a teen idol kind of person on there and then never showing him again and just having it blocked out. That's
I don't think we're going to get it, but I do like the idea.
Yeah, it's a very kind of dark humor. As for that intro, that reminded me very much of a Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul kind of intro that had not a lot of to do with the base of the episode, but had some texture to the overall plot of the show. And I think that's real cool with the idea of the tools being the fruit, but it doesn't make sense, even though things are shot out of order sometimes or presented to us out of order, because they didn't start working on that till Milchek decided to order the sadness kit or the whatever kit later in the episode. So that I assume that's when they started to go to work on the head.
I think they call it a bereavement kit.
The bereavement kit, yes.
Bereavement. I'm not sure if that's exactly what it's called.
That is the correct expression.
It was something. Yeah, it was really funny. Like, yeah, because they'd have to I mean, I was thinking that the melons might have been 3D printed, or not 3D carved, maybe.
I'm sure they have a room for that. They have a room for that. There's a room that just produces those.
Yeah, or they've got a pumpkin carver or something in there.
I got a guy for that.
I need some elaborate carvings on these pumpkins nowadays. They didn't have the stuff that we used when we were young, Heidi.
No, absolutely not.
These guys are making these carvings are amazing today.
I used a butter knife or something.
So yeah, that's what we had, Heidi. We had butter knives and slinkies. We're from that era.
My parents would let me use a sharp tool. No, the other thing. I've got a couple more notes here. I was going to ask all of you about the Gordon Lightfoot song. Well, first off, I was telling somebody recently, I had another interview I was doing, and I said, because I'm an insecure Canadian, I always have to shout out when there's a Canadian that's used in a show. So Gordon Lightfoot is one of Canada's iconic musicians, and I knew the song right away. I didn't remember the name of it, but it's The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. So Pete, I know you looked a bit into that, right, in your video?
Yeah.
You want to comment on that a bit?
Yeah, I
humming it, if anyone was wondering what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the thing with that was that I didn't, for some reason, when they first sent the screener this time, it didn't have the subtitles. So I knew the tune, but it wasn't something that like I'd ever listen to like on purpose. It's like a song that I knew from the radio or something like that. So yeah, I looked into it, and the I think the line that that's in the beginning about how the lake never gives up its dead, that was the thing that jumped out to me the most, considering that we're talking about this guy who works on a place, the floor that we expect is like where people go and they never get to leave, and that going there is kind of the big thing for this MDR team at the moment. So yeah, like I said, I wasn't familiar. Like I understood it was about a shipwreck. but I had to look up the history and everything. It wasn't something I knew about.
Yeah, it's based on a true story, though, from my understanding.
Yeah,
yeah, it's a freighter.
Right, the other people died. They never found the people, or never found.
Yeah, it was like 29. I think was 29 people or
Mhm.
something like that, and no bodies were recovered. Anything. It was just a complete loss.
It's like the Terror, which, or is another. We had another crash up north where basically they got frozen, like they got what is it, ice locked, and they couldn't move, so they basically starved to death, kind of thing. So, or maybe it's a Franklin. Maybe I think the Franklin expedition. So I thought that was really an interesting way. Also, that was sort of an interesting opener. Like I think it was a cold open before they went to the.
Yeah,
credits.
it was like a pure cold, like Phil said. It was very Breaking Bad. It had a very Breaking Bad feel to it.
Now the other thing, again, this is in the episode. So Mark is taking pills, and I'm assuming they're like anti-rejection pills or something, or and they're the color of Lumen, by the way. Did you notice that? But also he grabs this drink. He's got several little canisters of this drink. What is in that drink? Does anyone know?
I saw a really interesting theory about that last night before I went to sleep. I don't know if anybody else saw this, but I'm not sure. It's another one of those ones that I have no idea if it's actually true, but it looks like it almost looks curdled inside there, right? And this is something that we see during the opening credits too. Someone said that it looks like goat's milk.
Yeah, Cindy says that in the chat too.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and that's supposed to be good for like brain function or something, like some kind of natural supplement for people who are, maybe if they had some kind of head injury or something like that, you would take it to help regenerate your pathways or whatever.
So Ragabi, I'm assuming, is the one who got him that.
Yeah, she probably advised PD. What is that?
Yeah.
Is that his name? Against all these things he shouldn't have done, and he's out there, drinking booze and not keeping his electrolytes up, or some stuff like that. And Mark's trying to sort of correct everything that PD did wrong to try to, because he's gonna make it. I mean, the show's not. I mean, I'd be super surprised if Mark dies and doesn't sort of reconnect.
That'd be amazing if they did kill him off. That would be
shocking.
Yeah, that would be some Ned Eddard Stark kind of stuff.
I don't know if they can do it though. I mean,
yeah,
they're not going to do it. There's enough cast to kill him off, so I don't think they can.
Does anyone feel worried for him though? Like, do you feel like maybe his plot armor? He might have some plot armor.
I'm worried for his emotional stability and him being sane through the whole thing and not being in pain.
It's so sensitive.
Do you know what I'm actually worried about? I'm worried that we didn't all get to hear that theremin solo. Like that bumps me out. I was waiting for that. I saw her say that. I was like, that's the worst thing Milchek's done.
You know what's weird though? There's another Apple show that also has a theremin. That's why I thought it was so weird. Because I'm like, wait a second, this is the second Apple show with a theremin.
In case people don't know who Phil the Issues guy. Phil the Issues guy is the master of 72 instruments. And he can play 72 instruments. He's a master of 72 instruments. All 72. It doesn't matter if it's an ocarina from Link all the way down to the spoons. Phil could play
amazing.
It all.
They're all in my car right now.
Phil, I'm so glad I know you now. That I know someone so talented.
I don't do any of them well. It's just that I can kind of make a sound on all of them.
Yeah. So have you ever played a theremin? Am I even saying that?
I've tried, but it's more stuff my guitar player plays with the theremin because he's into Jimmy Page. Used to do it with like a bow in one hand and that kind of stuff. So
wow.
It's used I kind of wanted to incorporate one into while I was drumming and stuff, but it's difficult. It's used best with two hands. It's a beautiful instrument.
Let me say shout out to Moni G. I haven't seen Moni G in a very long time. Let me give a shout out to Moni G.
Where is it?
Moni G in the chat. I haven't seen Moni G in years. I haven't seen Moni G in years. She used to be around for the Game of Thrones and all that good stuff back in the day and all that. I haven't seen her in years. Can I say something? Because this is the first time I got a chance to talk to P. I've never talked to my man P Double. Never got a chance to talk to him. So I watched the stream with Quinn. It was a very good stream with Quinn and stuff. And I'm friends with Quinn and everything. I have a funny story about Quinn. A little war story real quick about Quinn. I went to a convention and it was me.
I was right next to you, so I can verify this whole day.
Yeah, Phil was there and Gray Area was there, and we were going. And while we're walking down the convention, this girl comes over to me and she goes, "Oh my God, Quinn from Ideas of Ice and Fire. I just want to let you know that I love your videos. And I was like, thank you very much. And Gray's like, that's not Quinn. Stop it. Stop it. I was like, I am Quinn. Stop. What are you talking about, Gray? She's like, you're not Quinn. Stop it. And then she's like, yes, you are. And I go like this. I go, she goes, you're not Quinn. I go, deepest down in the bathroom terror started Dune, the prophecy. And she went, oh my God, you are Quinn. I can't believe it. Can I take a picture with you? And I took a picture with this chick. I took like 4 pictures with her.
That's hilarious.
And
I love your impression of her though. That's even better. That sort of she sounds like a Valley girl or something.
And your impression of Quinn in the moment was even way
Quinn in the
better.
moment.
Like,
Yeah,
in the
that
moment-
sounded like Quinn. That was a pretty good. That was
and
a
he
pretty
even
good-
did it better in the moment. Like in the moment, he like his voice transformed into Quinn in that moment.
because Gray was trying to blow up the spot, and I was just like,
Yeah, we were trying to sell it, Tony. You and I were like trying to sell it. We were like, I was like, no, this is Quinn. This is Quinn.
We don't seem to have a consensus about the drink. Some people think, I don't know, it could be an egg, it could be like stirred up egg, or I don't know. It looks stringy to me. It looks kind of stringy.
It's like a protein
Yeah.
shake of some sort.
I mean-
I'm assuming it's his electrolytes, or he has to keep his protein.
Oh, hi,
up.
Glue Guns.
What up to Glue Guns and Roses?
Oh.
Yeah, I love her
think
name.
the
She's
fact-
got an awesome name.
I think that the fact that, and she has an awesome channel too, Glue Guns and Roses.
She does.
Oh yeah, I think the fact that we have seen goats, it would make sense that it would be
Mhm.
goat.
I
That it
think
would have
so. It does
something to
make
do with
sense.
Goat. If we had a Jamaican, we would know for real if it was really goat milk, but we ain't got no Jamaican shit. But I would have to say that.
Some other weird things that happened in this episode were things like your dryer's broken, or sorry, they were out of eggnog. I think it's out of season. Like just weird rando sort of comments in there. Like, why are you here? Like, why are you living in my house? Those types of things. Just the writing on this, every time I think about it, just cracks me right up. Do we want to talk about the poster, like the little reveal? That was a fun reveal, I thought. Because Pete, I think when we did the stream together, there were people who were like, oh, more than likely there's probably something behind that. It's a clue. So what was everyone's thought on that? Who wants to go?
I've heard someone say like the map like leads right back to where they are. Like it's just like if they trace down, you trace off the map and you go, it like leads right back there. And I was like, I don't think that would make a lot of sense for them to do that. If it was like that, that wouldn't be bad. But it's like if you go and you look at the left, the right, they're like it leads right where they're at and everything else. And I was like, I don't understand it. But listen, it was a good thing to hang in there situation, right? It was a good shout out to the end. It was a good wrap up. Again, as I talk about these shows, that when they give you some type of question, that they actually give you the answer. And I think that they gave that answer very quickly and everything. I think, and that's a George R. R. Martin style of writing. Like he gives you answers before you even ask the question. So he gave us the answer right there of hang in there before we even got the chance to ask the question, what that really meant and stuff. So I like the way that they did that.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. What about you, Phil? Did you think that was a fun little payoff?
I definitely thought that was a fun little payoff. I like shows and I like moments that do that, and especially because I didn't connect it. It's one of those things that I love, things that happen earlier in seasons and moments, and then you go back to them and go, oh, damn, that was more important than it was. And this show is really good at playing misdirection. It's doing tricks. They're not tricks, Michael. They're illusions. Okay, they're illusions, like illusions and different deceptions, and kind of pointing you in either directions. And it really does it in an immensely effective way. And that one totally goosed me. It surprised me. And I was like, oh, whoa. Like, I just thought it was a throwaway sort of, he was quoting the handbook or something like that, and on his way out and trying to say something prideful. I didn't think it had any significance or anything. So it was really an awesome surprise, goose me kind of moment for me.
Yeah. Pete, were you talking about it on your live stream on Friday?
Yeah, that was the thing, was that we were talking about it that when it first came up, because I thought about the poster just because we use that as the background for the stream. And so I had seen it because it was, the actual artwork was uploaded. So I had made that into the background or whatever. And so I even said that. I was like, oh yeah, it made me think of the poster, but I never put 2 and 2 together that they would actually hide the note behind the poster and then he would discover it later. So that was definitely really cool.
By the way, I have to
Look
tell
at
everyone, if you're on LinkedIn, there's Lumen Industries has an account there, so you should go follow it if you're on LinkedIn. And like today, they just posted the poster of Dylan's, hang in there, which is, I guess, based off of like the 1970s cat poster of the little kitten. It's pretty fun.
Where are the cameras in this place? Like you would think that he would have got caught doing that. Like where are the cameras all over this place and stuff? You would think, how Irvin would be able to slip that back there and get away with it, and then this guy would be able to pull it out and then read it. And, to me, it thinks like they're being watched all the time. Like even if he did do it, that they're going to know that you have that note and everything else, so they might have seen it being placed back there and left it there themselves to see who finds it and everything else. It just seems like, like when you see them go into the bathroom, I think the bathroom is the safe spot. You can go in the bathroom, there's no cameras in the bathroom, it should be like that. But in these rooms, I would really believe that there's cameras and stuff. Google says there's no cameras in the bank, or Helena said there's no.
It was kind of weird when Outie Mark was surprised that they could potentially be watched. They're being watched all the time. Like Ragabi's like, we don't know, and I thought that, he's living in a Lumen house, like the whole, he was living next door to Cobal or Miss.
The whole place is Lumen, right? Everywhere. Yeah. The whole town.
The town is
it's like a company town.
Yeah, right. So they own everything in the
like
town.
Disney Springs or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they got surveillance on everybody at all times. I would believe, and it's funny that they have all this technology, but when we look at the technology that they provide in the town, it's all outdated. They have phone booths.
They have payphones and stuff like that. I was gonna say that
the payphones from back in the day, and all the cars are old school. There's no one riding like a new whip. All the cars are all from back in the 70s and all that. Why is everyone driving all these old stuff? And it makes you seem like the technology is like back in the day, but we know that it's not. But that has
Tony, that's an excellent point. And they take that a step further with the way that they shoot the outside stuff versus the way they shoot the stuff inside. Everything's all kind of dark and a little bit more grainy on the outside. And like when you get inside, everything's bright, like a Mac store, with the bright colors and stuff. But outside in the real things, everything's drab and awful. One thing I want to talk about at some point, because it's trivial though. What is, I'm blanking on his name. What is his brother-in-law's name? The dude that wrote the book.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. I thought that was hilarious. That was suddenly one of the
absolutely.
most spin around and the change around in the book and the way he's just eating it up and the way he does so many like subtle malapropisms and they just make him out to be an ass, and everything he says, I think is a very much they play him for comedy throughout the series, and he's a joke character, but he's going to be dangerous. I think he's going to serve to be a very dangerous force moving forward in this story, I think.
There's a book for sale, right? You can buy that book.
You bought it, didn't you? You bought the book, and
everyone should buy Tony's book. Forget that book. Buy Tony's book.
Let's not talk about my book. I appreciate it.
No problem, Sarge.
I think they put like an hour of the audio book up. I listened to that. I think you can download the same thing for free of the
and the actor did the voiceover. I understand, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Michael Cernus does it.
He's really good. I think he's is it Devin, Mark's sister?
Yeah.
She's sort of the one who is the natural skeptic. She's kind of suspicious of everything, and I think she's sort of, I'm trying to figure out who is the character that would be us. And I kind of keep going to her that she's, our sort of on the inside person.
Surrogate,
so she doesn't necessarily have all the information, but she has some of the information.
And she's right in the middle of it too.
She's right in the middle. Yeah. So Pete, what do you think about Devin? Do you think she's going to be a major player, like pulling up a little bit further ahead? Or do you think she's going to sit in the background a bit still for a while?
It depends. Go ahead, Phil. Sorry. Go ahead, Pete. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that one thing that I saw somebody else say recently was that like that as far as Outie Mark is concerned, that's like his whole. That's the only person in his life, basically. And he's in the process of kind of pushing her out now that he's doing reintegration. So I think there's a lot of interesting stuff there because she's the only one that he really trusts. and now he's in the process of kind of pushing her away. So
yeah, well, they had that. I think it stemmed from her saying that she also misses Gemma, and which I thought was a weird thing for him to say. How, why would you miss her? Like, she was my wife. Like, well, no, of course she's going to miss her too. It was her sister-in-law, right? And but I guess he's in quite a bit of pain, and
yeah, and when you're in a moment like that,
Yeah.
sometimes you want to put a lightning rod on yourself just to kind of feel special, or slam your fist or not feel bad, and you're like, no, you don't get it, what do you give a crap about? You're over there with your idiot husband writing his stupid book, like I'm over here cut my brain in half and missing my wife. So but realistically, if you asked him, like, his clear-minded Mark, he would probably be like, I know you're hurting too. I think he's just in too much pain to think logically, which is how he got in this position in the first place.
Yeah. Sorry, Tony, you look like you're going to say something there.
No, go right ahead. Go right ahead. You're good.
No, I was going to say, one of the things I find really interesting, and I think like two Marks, Innie and Outie, I'm enjoying their two different personalities, because Outie Mark is kind of curmudgeon-y, right? He's kind of grumpy. It's not like the most fun. It seems like he's probably depressed, even though he is severed. He's still in his daily life, or rest of his outie life. Just, it seems like a pretty unhappy person. Whereas Mark, is it Mark R?
Mark.
Yeah, he seems like, except for and some of the stuff he said in the elevator to Milchek cracked me right up. He's actually fairly happy-go-lucky. I mean, this was probably a little bit of a downer episode for him, but for the most part, he's usually like, fairly optimistic. So
we saw a little of his prick in this episode, but not.
Yeah, that scene in the elevator was hilarious. Like,
yeah, definitely prickish.
And he was a prick to Helly a little bit in the episode.
Yeah,
he has trouble trusting her because he doesn't know if she's really still Helena. So I mean, I think we saw a little bit of that personality trait from the outside coming on the inside. Well, I'm double dirty entendres all over the place. But I do think at core, Mark S he's a sweetheart, as they say on the outside. He's a sweet person. He's one of our sweetest employees.
Yeah.
One of the things too that I think that season 2 has done that's really interesting, and it's a continuation of what we saw in the first season, is that, because I had a lot of people that were saying, well, the reintegration is happening. You can see that, because of his personality traits coming out. And I'm not really debating that or like refuting that. But the thing about Mark is that, and innies in general, is that they start out one way and then they grow. Like the whole first season, we saw that after PD left and Helly came in, Mark changed. Innie Mark changed as a character. They're not like, just stuck at where they come into the world. They actually change and grow. It's like regular people. They're just starting off at a different point. So I thought that a lot, about what we saw last episode, is that this is where Innie Mark is now. Like, he was that just happy-go-lucky guy in the beginning that, really couldn't be bothered with anything. He just there to do his job, and telling Helly, oh yeah, we don't sleep. We just try not to think about it. We just try to focus on, the effects or whatever. And so, like, we're seeing them all progress as characters. Like, they were kids before, now they're sort of like teens or whatever. And that's an interesting aspect of what's going on there too.
The one thing is like when you look at Dylan, and they offered Dylan the chance to have a time to spend with his wife, right, and come into there and everything else. Does he love his wife? Like, would you love that woman if you don't know that woman? Like, he wants them to come, but will he still have the same love for them? Because you haven't been through the experiences that you have been with that person. So would you really love that person? And it just comes to the whole thing of, like, which is the real you? Like, everyone is shaped by the lens of your experiences. And with those having limited experiences, what are you? Is Helly the real Helena? Is Helena really Helly? But Helena's been through so much, you know what I mean? So that's why she acts the way she does, and Helly hasn't been through those things and that family stuff.
Yeah, they don't have the trauma. Is that what you mean? Like, they haven't had those life experiences that shape them.
but just also just the, I don't know, the existential question of who is the real person in this situation. And I think the unfortunate thing, I don't want, and this isn't one of my usual sitting on the fence, I really think the answer is yes, it's both, but both of them are.
Yeah,
It's whoever
agreed.
it is in the moment. It's just the innies, as they develop and as they see more, they expand more. But when Helly showed up, it really unlocked the feeling of connection with Mark, and it sort of opened up his heart, which started him down a different road. Same could be said for Irv with Christopher Walken, Ernie and Bert there. But like, it just, it's so interesting to watch just as the creatures discover it. But to answer your question, Tony, I think they're both really them, and I think this is just an overall question I have because I'm not as familiar with season 1 as I should be. With the whole reintegration thing, is it destroying your innie self or combining them both into one personality where you sort of, we're both just organized, so you have sort of a, like Data, when Data takes Lore's personality and all the villagers people, or Picard keeps the memories of the people, the flute people from the Inner Light episode. Do they sort of keep the memories of the innie when they reintegrate?
We don't know the finer details on it, but yeah, that's the thing, is that they are supposed to combine the memories. Like, it's not like I guess the question is like, who would actually be in control, or whose mind would it be? That's the part we don't really understand yet, because the only person we saw go through it was Petey, who wasn't doing what he's supposed to do, and he was just jumbled. You know what I mean? He was just a jumbled mess that never. Ragabi says that Mark will eventually get past that phase, but we don't know for sure. I think that's, you know, sort of what we're supposed to believe, is that both memories at least will exist in the same whole person.
Like
it won't be
a Venom Eddie Brock thing, or will they be like one?
I don't know.
Weird.
Yeah.
Weird to think.
I kind of think of it as like two lenses, like, you know, you're wearing eyeglasses, and then, you know, it's like one thing here, one thing in there, and then you put it like that, and it sort of blends together. That's sort of how I was thinking
I
it.
keep going to Star Trek, maybe like Dax.
Oh,
like
no, that's good. I like the Star Trek references.
Like, if people have watched Deep Space Nine, perhaps like a symbiote thing, like you're like it is Jadzia Dax, but has the Dax symbiote, so it's like a combined mind of some sort, perhaps. I always go to Star Trek.
I was going to actually, this brings me to a point. There's one really great moment when Mark, after he had that drink, and he asked Ragabi, when will I start having memories? And she said, well, maybe your innie has. And I thought that was actually a really good point, right? So he's assuming that the experiences are going to happen to him. And we already have an example of it happening to the innie Mark when he sleeps with Helena. But then at the end of this episode, like, what did you all think about that whole scene? That was pretty interesting, I thought. Pete, what did you think of that scene? I saw your video, but you can.
Yeah, I mean, that was like that really hit home, because of the fact that, you know, this is someone, like, grief is trying to understand how to live with not seeing someone ever again, you know, and I know that they said it on the official podcast about, like, when you have a dream of someone that you've lost. This is something I've experienced myself, and like, you wake up and you feel like you have that feeling of like them still being there, and then you have to learn it again that they're really dead, you know. So there's so much going on in that scene for him there, because he's seeing someone that shouldn't be possible. And even if it was, he can't, how much can he really trust it or believe in it? You know what I mean? Or even understand it. And then, you know, yeah, I thought it was really effective.
Tony, what'd you think of that? Like, it was really interesting how they, like, he's in the basement, and I love how they did the whole, like, the effect and everything of him. So now I was going to ask you all, though, this is just me, but when I first heard Miss Casey doing the outies, you know, what your outie enjoys, like the ice cream.
Yeah.
The ice cream thing was hilarious. He can have 2 scoops of ice cream, but they have to be the same flavor. That is such a Canadian joke, by the way. No, but about when I first heard the voice, I actually thought it was Helly R, not Miss Casey. And then I watched it again and I'm like, okay, maybe it's Miss Casey, but now I'm feeling like maybe it's blending the two of them. Did anyone else hear that? You can tell me in the chat if you heard Hallie or if you were like, no, it's definitely Miss Casey. Pete, what did you think? Did you think it was Miss Casey?
I did, because I wanted it to be that though too. You know what I mean? Like I never, it didn't jump out at me as there being a different voice there. So
yeah, so maybe it's just me. What about you, Tony?
I don't know if it makes sense. I think it would make more sense that it would be Miss Casey. And last word, what is it, Mark? Actually, you're gonna die. It was what it was. She didn't say it at the end and stuff like that. It seemed like that's what she was hinting at. But
what did you think she was gonna say?
That he's gonna die.
What was the thing he said right before? Was it it's gonna do great things? Your innie will do great things, and then possibly your innie will die.
Sorry, some of the innie things or the outie things are so funny. Oh my god, your outie can parallel park in 20 seconds.
I thought those seemed like they were extra personal. You know, like those were things that he didn't necessarily hear in a wellness session, but like something only his wife would know about him, like the 2 scoops of ice cream. Like they were funny, like you said, but they also felt like they had a personal touch to them that the actual real wellness sessions didn't have, like by design.
Your outie hates Neapolitan ice cream.
Yeah, Outie gonna be a daddy. I mean, I've heard it. It's a good chance. We didn't see any condoms in the tent.
Yeah,
that she's pregnant. I mean, maybe we'll see. You know, but does it work that way? Does that work for the show, making her pregnant? That's the only thing I think about. Does it really work for her character to be pregnant?
Yeah, can we talk about that for a minute? Because this is something that has been kind of an issue with the way regular stories work. That's hard to kind of figure out what they're going to do, because they set up this thing, Miss Casey, this human being that Mark loves, and as far as everyone else knows, you know, that is just a great person. Everybody, like, nobody has anything bad to say about her, right? She apparently made him a better person just by being around, and so on and so forth. So this is this thing that's been his goal, his Audie's goal is to reunite. But then at the same time, they're building up this other character in Hallie R that we really find endearing at the same time. And when you start thinking about putting those brains together, and then like, how does that work? You know what I mean? Like
it'd be like a quadruple. Like what's the foursome for like? Yeah, there's a thruple. What's the fourth? Tony, do you know what is it?
A finuple? No,
a quad.
A quad.
I don't know. No, that's a really interesting point, because obviously Innie Mark and Innie Hallie.
If Mark and Gemma get back together, that means Hallie's gone. You know what I mean? Like, it's true. And she can't exist inside Helena based on what we've seen so far.
Thank you, James.
You know, so like I think it's
and how much do we know of Mrs. Casey? Mark's wife has left it with Mrs. Casey. Maybe that's all been wiped, and she's just sort of an empty palette. Maybe when they do combine, we were talking a lot about who takes precedent, whose heart takes precedent. Right now is Mark's active heart more active for Hallie R, and then how does that affect? I don't even think they really addressed the fact that Mark had sex with Helena, not Hallie R, right? So she
doesn't know yet.
She doesn't know that factor of it.
Yeah. Right? The interesting thing is, someone was saying that Helena is jealous of Hallie R. I think they both. But what's interesting is they both have feelings for Mark. Like, I think Helena genuinely does have some feelings for Mark. And by the way, did you notice when she did I don't know if you would call it like deprogramming or what have you, that she had with Mr. Drummond? Did you find that it was weird that she kept asking, "Oh, does my father want to see me?" Like, "Oh, did my dad ask? You know, or should I be willing to tell my dad?" Like, she kept kind of asking about her dad. Like,
it seemed like she was playing, like letting them know, you understand, that's my father. with my dad ass, you know, like Trump trying to trump them. Like, you understand who I am here. This is my dad ass, and my dad, you know, I've seen little kids do that, you know, I'll get my father, you know, and everything else, like trying to trump.
And they were giving her that we don't care about your daddy bullshit.
Yeah.
They're like, don't tell us about your daddy.
We ain't tell your dad, all right? Your dad don't
Well, it's almost like what did they say? She's the leader in waiting. That's how Milchek referred to her. And what if she's really not? Like, what if she's just a figurehead and they're the puppet masters that are pulling the strings, and she's just going to be like, you know, they're going to put her up on a stage and move her around and things like that, but she won't be really have any power.
I think it could be even worse than that. And this is, again, my tinfoil bullshit. I talked about this on Tony's stream. Perhaps she's even being sort of placed to have her brain taken over by Kier. And she's like a Risha Ghul Talia situation where he's trying to take over, implant another mind into her. And she's just an empty vessel to be tested out later. I'm not saying that's definitely the
like
case.
A Get Out type of thing, or like or John Malkovich.
Yeah, it would be like
that's interesting. So every generation is Kier.
Yes, over and over. And over.
I love that idea.
Kind of like,
that's crazy, but it's fine.
Like a skeleton key, as we talked about, Phil, right? Like a skeleton's key situation. If anyone's seen that movie where the people would transfer their souls into the next person, next generation, everything. I think it's a good possibility that could happen. I 100%, and I'm gonna say I don't believe that Kier is Kier. I think Kier is Dita. I just don't know why you introduce a twin brother, if not to play the twin card. I mean, it's a card that's been played in a lot of shows and everything, but it just, to me, you could have just said you had a brother. It didn't have to be a twin. Why do you introduce the twin brother of Dieter, if not that Dieter could have already took over and he was the one pretending to be Kier the whole time? And it's really Dieter and not Kier that people are worshiping. I just don't see any other reason for them to introduce a twin brother unless they're going to try to do a situation like that later on. That it really wasn't Kier, it was really Dieter who was actually doing this whole thing the whole time.
What do you think, Pete? Are we getting into some tinfoil hat theories here?
Well, some of the stuff that you're saying about, like, some of the stuff I can't comment on because
sure, because you've seen the next episode. Okay.
Yeah. So I think I'm just listening. I'm enjoying listening to what
someone's
you guys
asking who is Drummond officially. He's a higher up, I believe, in the organization.
Yeah,
do we know?
That's the one thing I would say as far as that scene. There's a lot of weird dynamics going on inside the family and cult and corporation all at the same time. That's what I was thinking. Like, how did they? If she's the future CEO, then why is Drummond telling her what to do? And even Natalie, who we know Natalie is mostly just or at least we thought she was just like a mouthpiece for them in the first season. You know, like, so it's very confusing, the structure internally. And the idea of her father too, you know, like he says father, Mr. Drummond says father. He refers to him as father too. Like, is that father in the cult sense, like the father of the company, or is that like he's a brother, you know, like an illegitimate brother or something along those lines? You know what I mean?
Well, and the other thing I was thinking of, like Kier, and from my understanding, are they a publicly traded company or are they a private enterprise?
Probably a religion. They don't pay taxes.
Because I like, if you're just a privately owned company like Mars, for instance, you wouldn't have a board because you're privately owned. It would only be if you are, you have to have board of directors if you are a publicly traded company to answer to. And so which makes me, I still don't know that I think I mentioned to you, Pete, that the board, for all I know, could be aliens. We have really no idea what they are, or do they have any kind of,
don't say aliens in front of me.
No, I know.
Crazy.
Well, you know what I mean? We don't really know. Someone was saying they could be the goats. The goat could be the board. We don't really know what the board is because it's all through Natalie's earpiece. And there's a show called I think I mentioned this. It was like Mrs. Dallas or Mrs. Davis, I think, where there was an AI that was basically kind of in charge, and the AI spoke through an earpiece to other, and then that person then would speak to the other person.
What was that show where it was like a bunch of like brains, and it was just the brains that
Herman's Head?
What was it?
I was just gonna ask you, are you talking about Herman's Head?
For
No,
feet?
no. There was a show like, and like it had like a bunch of brains like in a jar, and the brains would talk. And
Oh,
stuff.
okay.
It was no body. It was just a brain that would talk. I mean,
Was it the man with two brains?
No, I did see that when he screwed
Yeah,
it
because
on.
there is a brain in a jar. It's Bernadette Peters.
And all that. But it could just be AI of all these people from the past or the CEOs. We could easily have a Ted Williams situation going on here, where these people have been frozen, their bodies have been, their brains and everything have been frozen, and they're just trying to find a way to get them back, to bring them back.
Or a
over.
Futurama situation, and all the
past presidents in the perpetuity wing are actually cryogenically frozen.
or people in the live chat are saying this, are Futurama, where they're actually alive, they're in a little head thing. I mean, if we're gonna get silly, we might as well go Futurama.
No, I know. Yeah, sorry, Pete. We're doing this to you.
Yeah, everyone in the chat saying Futurama.
Yeah, because I kept yelling at my husband the other day. We were watching some show. I kept going, Occam's razor, Occam's razor, because it's like things can get really kind of crazy. Pete, I know this is just what happens though, like with people who do analysis and deep dives, because they're just like, okay, like especially with something like From, I mean, God knows there's so many theories on that.
It has to be. I mean, you have to, when you look, what's the end game for Lumen? I mean, the company's logo is a drop of blood, right? That's basically it. So it has to have something to do with bloodline over and over again. You know what I mean? It would just seem that these people would just want to come back in some way, come back to life and still rule. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if, and dealing with, with what they've dealt with, what Ben Stiller has dealt with AI affecting the writer's block and the writer's strike and everything else. He may want to make a statement in the show about how AI could go wrong and how this could happen. So, it could be a situation like that where all these people, they're trying, that's what they're actually trying to develop in the cold harbor, the perfect AI that could bring this person back to what they exactly they were.
Well, Pete, to bring it down to earth a bit, Drummond did mention that this would be the most important development in the entire world or something. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
badly paraphrasing what he's saying, but so obviously it is pretty significant, whatever they're working on.
Well, they think it is, at least
they do. Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I think that's the kind of statement that, that sounds really, really crucial. But with him, you just sort of wonder, well, what's the lens he's looking at that through? You know what I mean? Like, is it important? And because I mean, when it comes down to it, Lumen as a corporation, they're not doing anything that's good for humanity. By definition, that's not what they're doing. Say in the testing floor, they're bringing people back who are brain dead back to life. Even if they are doing something like that may be beneficial for some people, the reason they're doing it is they're not doing it they're doing it to make money, right? That's the way that a corporation functions, is that they're trying to increase their revenue. So, what I think when we think about a lot of stuff, we have to think about that's who they are. And then there's the family behind them that is got this crazy cult of personality thing around the founder, which is another layer. So when he says it's important for humanity, I kind of think that means that he's talking more from the perspective of what it means for Kier's vision, whatever that is. It's never been defined, but we can guess at what that is. I think that's more what he's talking about than actually some kind of new tech that's going to come out that's going to actually change anything for anyone, any real people.
Yeah, I think it's more company propaganda in that moment. It's, I mean, if you even read the way that Milchek's report, as you were saying, Heidi, it's this flowery way and all these big, bold things. So the greatest advance in the history of the planet of accomplishments could simply mean that they achieved the goal that they set out in this year's quarter. It could be something huge, monumental, like creating AI, getting data to have emotions or whatever, all these kinds of things. Or it could be something as simple as completing data mining's goals for this quarter, you know, something as
Uh-huh.
trivial as that within this world. And that's the amazing thing that they've created here. Part of this could all just be typical corporate greed to make money, no overarching theme to take over the world, even though they don't want to do anything good, but they're ultimately just a Walmart company, you know, one for one. This is how
and that's like baseline, and then it could go like super dark beyond that they're like experimenting on living people and you know, that people who they think are chattel, right? Like people that they're thinking like we can do whatever we want because it's nothing, you know what I mean?
They're
like
birthing people severed. I mentioned this earlier, and just so they can experiment on them because they're not real people, or criminals that, you know, Running Man type stuff, like take criminals that are on death row and just sever them, and we don't care about them anyway because they're going to die anyway. You know, they're doing that for sicker, deeper experiments, and that's not that far out there. That's just another step of taking people that have given up completely to go.
If they really want to take the world over, then you start Manchurian candidating people, right? And you put the people and you sever these people that are in politics and have them do what you want them to do, and have be a way that you can actually change their mind and take them over completely, and that all these people are out there are the ones who control that are the face plants, I would say, the lightning rods to take the hits, that are the figureheads that are really actually being controlled by the people in the background. I mean, we could just look at the Wizard of Oz type situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't look at the man behind the curtain, just look at the big head. And I think that could be what their ultimate goal is with these chips, and that's what they're trying to put them out there for.
As for the power struggle in the meeting with Hilly and the two officers that she's essentially maybe more important in the company, she's also having issues with her father, looking at her just from basic stuff, looking at her as maybe not having a handle on everything that's going on and not being as good as the rest of the members of the family. So she's probably also scared and knows that those people have her father's ear. So even though she's in a power position in that moment, ultimately in that situation, they have her by the proverbial balls, and they can really screw her over by telling her father, oh, she's inept, she screwed up here, she did this, she did that. So she has to tread lightly, to use a Walter White term, through with them to kind of play their placating game and can't tell them to go F themselves. Even though this is a question from the episode before, the episode when they were on the camp out, when she's laughing at the stupid stories about Kier to Milchek, is that really her laughing because she doesn't believe in her family dogmatic bullshit? Like at core, she thinks like all these stories are ridiculous, and most of the people in the family think these stories are ridiculous. So she can't keep herself, or is she playing into character in that moment and playing Hilly? I kind of wondered. It seemed like a genuine, like she can't with the Kier propaganda right there. In that moment.
That could be her whole thing, and that could be her downfall in the company because she hasn't drinking the Kool-Aid like everybody else, right? She hasn't done this. She knows she's calling bullshit on these stories and stuff, and she's not supposed to be. You know, the people in the higher up are the ones who are supposed to be the most devout, but they're the ones who truly know the truth. You know, like when you see, like I seen this one guy, this angelical guy, and he was touching people on the head, and every time he touched them, they would fall down. And the guy was touching. He's like, Jesus is Jesus. And then the one guy came, the guy did like a 360 and slapped him. Like, Jesus. And it's like, and the guy just hit the floor and started shaking. I'm like, did you really have to do the 360? I mean, did you really have to go that far?
It's a little flare.
But he knows that was bullshit. You know what I mean? The people he's done with know that's his bullshit, but the people around him didn't. So, you know, she's supposed to be, she knows it's bullshit because she's in the family, but she's not supposed to let that out. You know, she's not supposed to say that and everything. Like when you have the people who go into the crowd and they'll go, oh, I feel somebody in the background and I feel a birth date that's blah, blah, blah. And, oh, that's mine. Yeah, there's a guy who was outside who asked you that before and knew it and then put her on the radio. The guy on the radio knows the bullshit and everything, but she's not supposed to express that. And I think that she expressed that at that time for whatever reason. Maybe she was in the moment and everything, and she's not supposed to express
she's
that.
cold.
Like, and I think that's what's going through.
And so I wonder when Milchek was reacting to her, was he reacting to Helena and being very disappointed that Helena would do such a thing versus Helly, who, you know, maybe he would have excused it more if it was just Helly not throwing the marshmallows in the fire.
And he knew, right? He knew she was not the real.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm pretty sure Pete, right?
Yeah,
Milchick.
100%, yeah, because he turns off the Glasgow block at the
Oh,
end.
that's right. Yeah, the
Yeah, when
Glasgow
this-
block.
Glasgow block. Yeah.
I swear to God, sometimes just I think they're making shit up sometimes.
I love the names. I love the names of everything.
It would be funny if it was something like an unusual suspects or whatever it's called. Is it usual suspects? Where he looks
Usual
on the wall
Suspects.
and he just, he's picking out different names for things just based on things that are pinned to the wall. You know what I'm talking about? Usual Suspects.
Mm-hmm. Great movie.
Yeah.
We lost Tony.
He said he'll be back in a second. He gave the camera though. I'll be back in 1 second.
I had something else I was going to ask everybody else. So let me see what it is.
And yeah, marshmallows are for winners.
Oh, I know what I wanted to
Team
ask.
players.
What is going on with Mark's cough? Like he coughed at least 4 times in the episode, right? Just
Well,
I thought
now he did get wet. He mentioned he was wet
You know.
when they were on the Ortbo. So what do you guys think about that?
I thought that the implication was that he was having sickness from reintegration. Like
That's
Petey
what I
did.
thought. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if it was any other show, it's one of those traditional television tropes. He's coughing. That means he has like terminal tuberculosis. But I think in this particular show right now, it just means that he's showing some signs and he's on the border. And when he's coughing, he's sort of having some side effects in the to kind of symbolize the momentary side effects of going through it. But isn't that fun? That's sort of a TV trope when usually characters are coughing.
It's true.
That character's dead.
Because you don't see it. I mean, unless they actually are pretending to be sick, right? Or supposed to be sick. But no, you never see a character. You never see a character cough or sneeze or anything like that.
It's uncomfortable. You're like, oh, that character's not.
Yeah, it really breaks the moment. But they did it like 4 times, and I don't know if it was more intense at any other time. Pete, did you notice that, or if it started to get worse toward the end?
I'm not sure about the intensity, but I thought it tracked with him seeing things too. You know, like we see little flashes of the outside or whatever. So I thought it was just like a little reminder that we, that he's going through that process.
Yeah, no, sorry, Sonic. No, we were sort of agreeing that it was probably a side effect of the reintegration, not like actually, because Helly, if anybody would, but she got medical treatment. It sounded like
she was like drowning and stuff too.
She got medical treatment, and they're rebalancing her tempers too.
and apparently,
who knows how that works?
And she's smoking some really green. No.
They wanted to send her for some type of treatment. Do you remember what that was?
Obligement.
And
another one.
And she said, no, thank you.
Yeah, because she already had one.
So God knows. Yeah, there must be a lot of Scientology type.
Yeah, she's like, F no, I'm not sitting in that room for that type of stuff. The scene that we haven't really talked about yet, that you mentioned it's slight, Heidi, I was just going to call you Helly. Helly, Helly costume, was at the end. Okay. We watched this whole episode. John Turturro is probably, I mean, there's a lot of great performances on this show, but I would put John Turturro just in that list of just some of the greatest actors on the planet, of like those underrated character actors, like Gary Oldman or something like that. Like he's just one of those best. And so like you're missing him for the first half of the episode and you're like, wait a minute, am I going to see this show without him? Is he gone? Are we not going to see him again? At least I was questioning that for a second. And I thought the way they integrated him back into the plot of the show was really well done, and it made sense too, because it connected back from the end of last season with Christopher Walken's character. He would understand that. He would remember that he was a severed person at one point in time. And I'm glad that they sort of again gave us not a conclusion but a setup. And I know Pete can't say anything, but I bet next episode we have that dinner, and if not the next episode,
with the wine and the ham.
Yeah, with the wine and the ham. And I think this is going to go in an interesting, odd way that we don't expect. They're all going to become friends and associates. There's some weird shit that's going to go on here, and I'm here for it, and it's awesome. But that was one of my favorite scenes of the entire show, just because seeing those two do work together is just so much fun. And Christopher Walken, as much as he's a caricature of himself at times, he's really playing down the Christopher Walken voice in this. And he's almost just speaking at times where you're like, oh, whoa, that's weird hearing Christopher Walken not do, oh, wow, Rob Cowbell. He's not really doing it.
Always Christopher Walken. He's
dropping it a little bit.
And I heard that him and John Turturro were actually good friends, and John Turturro brought him in on the show. Did you hear that?
You see the vibe.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah, they seem like just completely natural with each other.
Let me say real quick. I am drinking Miller Lite. People asking that what it is. And in case people thought that I was lying about the Dark Tower game, you can see I went and got it. See right here.
Oh,
This is the original Dark Tower. I have the whole game. I have the game. I had this since the 80s. This game right now. This game right now, I think sells on eBay for like $600 to $700 to get this game. It's the original game of Dark Tower. I promise you, I've played it since the 80s. And anytime my sister, my dad's the one who got it. And anytime my sister and my brother and I get together, we play the Dark Tower game. We play the tower. And that's awesome. What it is. It's a beautiful game. Probably the best board game ever made in the history of board games. Just, never
do you play any video games?
Yeah, I play some. I never really got into, I hadn't gotten into them until a few years ago. So I'm a noob.
You're a late
in a
bloomer.
lot of ways. Yeah.
That's cool. Pete, Phil, do you play video games?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I
started with the Atari and Breakout and all that sort of stuff. I'm a little bit of a Nintendo slut. Like I like other systems, I like other games, but I always have to play every Fire Emblem and Zelda game and Mario game and all those kind of games. And then I really like the Arkham Asylum series in Elden Ring and some of the Dark Soul type games as well. So I like game. I can't handle first person shooters because I get a little nauseous. So I need to see my character. So I like seeing my little character and pretending I'm that person. And I like sports.
That's awesome.
Games, like Tecmo.
I'm not into video games, but both my teens are. They love.
Yeah, my whole life I think has been shaped by my father. Mm-hmm. Like my father was a fencer. My father's 6'2". He was a black man from Marcy Projects, Brooklyn, New York. He was a fencer.
I did some fencing, Tony.
He was really good at it and stuff.
I wasn't really good.
Oh, really? Like a saber or like a what's the other one called?
What when he was
raptor?
Like a are you talking about sword fighting or are you talking about building fences?
With the mask.
Did he do the skinny one or the skinny one? Yes.
The Olympic style. He would do
Olympic
that.
Style, yes.
A rapier.
A rapier. Thank you.
Yeah, I would come around the corner. He'd be like, my whole life. So I got into swords all because of that.
That's awesome.
And then he introduced me to this show back in this movie. It was I know the main character was Kronos. Like the Kronos was like the villain of the movie. This robot Kronos.
That's the name of the Klingon planet too. Sorry.
And that's how I got into doing all sci-fi stuff. Was all because of him. In video games, he used to buy them all and then pretend it was for us and to my mother. But he would kick us off for the whole time and just play him himself. And every time he took us to arcade, he would just give us $10 each and a roll of quarters and then go off and play Asteroids and do his own thing. So
I got this Super Mario Brothers for you kids. Now go to bed.
Yeah. So all that stuff, everything was all from him. Like, my dad is the one who liked all that stuff. And I got into all that stuff because of him. And then I remember there was that one with what was that? Jason of the Argonauts and all that.
Yeah.
That was all from just watching it with him. That was all the shows he liked. So all the stuff he liked, I wound up liking in the end.
I don't know about all of you, but when they did that part during the funeral for Irv and they did the little 16-bit stuff, I started to want a Severance video game or some sort of.
Someone was saying, I think it'd be great. Like where you get to work in the office and everything. That would be good. It'd be like Wreck-It Ralph. But you're working.
I love the second Wreck-It Ralph movie too.
Second Wreck-It Ralph, yeah.
The Disney princess movie. How are they not doing a cartoon with all the Disney princesses like that? That was such an amazing scene. Sorry.
Oh no! I had a few more.
I'll start talking about Wreck-It Ralph. Don't.
One of the things I want to talk about. The name of the episode was Trojan's Horse. Usually it's a Trojan horse, but there was
he said the brother calls it. That's one of his malapropisms.
His malaprop, the Trojan's
horse. Yeah, double messing it up.
he said it might beget a revolution. Like, what were your thoughts on that? Like, and that whole scene with him and Devin was actually kind of an interesting scene.
It's ridiculous. It shows how much of an idiot he is. And how much
he's hot on the severed floor. Like he's, that one page slapped or whatever.
And you gotta applaud the credit and the ability of Lumen to stomp on something, to use something to their advantage. Any tool you have in a fight, they just grabbed him. They're manipulating him. They sent the girl down there to tell him how awesome he is and kiss his butt a little bit. And now he's sniffing his own fart smell, and he's all up in it. And
smells good, Tim.
Yeah, it smells great, Tony. It smells really good.
money and fame will do it. He put that in. You like the house, basically telling
Yeah.
you like the house we live in.
Even though he's writing, right? He is a bestseller, though, right? He's selling a lot of books because look at their house that they live in.
Is he though? You know, so again, you know, when you deal with books, and obviously I put out a book, but when you deal with books and books that come out there, when these artists go on the New York Times bestsellers, like say someone like I won't say Michelle Obama or something. I'm sure she has sold these books, but a lot of people like that when they put these books out, these fancy books. The publisher buys 100,000 or so copies of the book themselves to put their client on the New York Times bestsellers list, because the New York Times bestsellers list is based on how much you sell on that week. Right. So it's just all about your sales on that week. So when the book first comes out, the publisher will buy 200,000 copies. And then those would be the copies that person goes around and gives away for free and signs, just to put that name, New York Times bestseller, on that author to hopefully lead to more sales. Because obviously when a publisher buys it, they're not paying price for the books that they're selling it. You know, they're just paying for what it costs to print. So a lot of times that's what they do. So is he really a New York Times bestseller, or did this company, Lumen, buy these books and just give them out for free like they were doing?
That's a good book. Gave it to every single employee, Tony, and like made him showed him a sheet of paper and said, "Look, you know." So absolutely, I mean, but
it wasn't Cobell who brought the book in. She stole it from Mark originally, and she brought it to the office, and that's how it ended up in the office, right?
They're not talking about how it got there anymore. Now they're talking about what happened afterwards.
He moved past that.
He moved past that really quick.
Yeah, exactly. So what was the other thing I was going to ask?
But the thing with that, we were talking about what a huge sellout he was. You know what I mean? Like how incredibly quickly he sold out. And it was a little bit surprising, a little jarring. I saw other people kind of trying to justify it in that, well, it's only going to go to innies. You know what I mean? Like it's basically a secret book that no one on the outside will ever see. So what's the difference, basically? I don't know that he made that distinction in the scene, or that you would give him that as like, okay, well, they're not people anyways. Who cares what they read or whatever? But like he did sell out fast, like without, like Devin has made good points and he said he would think about it, but you could tell he was captured by the money and the praise.
I get your points, but it's a lot of money and I'm not saying no. And you need to understand.
She's like, I'm going to bed
because I need donuts.
Yeah, you brought up the book that he put out. The one thing that it does have, and something that because I think that overall my experience with it was that stuff's better in small doses. Like a whole book of it hits a lot different than like a funny line in like added in a different scene or whatever. But like the one thing that was interesting though is he does talk about Gemma and Mark as a couple quite a bit in there. So I would say like if you have a chance, if you have like an extra hour or whatever, it's worth checking out for that at all. Like he calls them different names, like they don't want to use their real names, but it's 100% clear that he's talking about Mark and Gemma, and so you get a little bit more of an insight to what losing her did for him as well. You know what I mean?
He pulled a Pamela Anderson. She didn't want to talk about Joni or Chachi, so she had to make up a different name in there. We know it was you, Chachi. We knew it was you all along. And Phil, what I want is some more cowbell, baby. Give me some more cowbell, Phil. We need cowbell.
I think the only thing I had left to talk about, but unless we want to open it up, is what was it here? Oh, it's when Mark says, where is the quote? Oh, because he's not dead, he's just not here. Yeah, sorry. Because he's not dead, he's just not here. He says that as an innie about Irving, and then about Gemma, he says she's not dead, she's just not here. He says that as the outie. So do you think that's another symptom of the reintegration process working, Pete?
I do, and I think what's interesting about this is it brings up the idea of the innie and the outie influencing each other. You know, because like we've all done the thought experiment, right? Like, what would I be like if they severed me? What would my innie be like? And then the question is after that is like, what could you learn from an innie, and what could you incorporate into yourself that would make you better, as you know, as by knowing what that innie would. And I thought that's what was really interesting about this, is that these aren't memories that are shared necessarily. They could be, but having him say the same thing at the same, you know, in both instances and different in the different personalities, it makes you think about that how they would influence each other.
Well, I was thinking about when we were talking about the book. I mean, everyone who is severed, when it seems that they can take the skills that they have with them, so they're able to read and write. And you know, I assume that if they can play an instrument as an outie, they could probably play one as an innie, but we haven't seen that example. But you know, they're functioning. They seem to have an intelligence. I don't know that they can recall like what does snow look like or things like that. That's one thing.
Tony and I were talking about that the other night.
Yeah.
Like, how much base knowledge do they actually possess when they go from one skill to one skill? How much carryover is there? I thought that was very interesting. Which is a good point to. Is it just a haunting memory that you sort of want to say something, like an influence that you don't get? Or is there already some shared consciousness, and this is a technology that they don't quite understand? And I think as the reintegration happens, I think we may learn more about how this everything works.
Because if he's able to convince them that this is the world's largest waterfall, I mean, obviously they know what a waterfall is, but they don't remember seeing a waterfall or one larger than that. They don't know nothing about Niagara Falls. Shout out to Canada. They don't know nothing about
well, also shout out to America, because you guys have one too.
They don't know anything about that, so they know what a waterfall is, but they can't
Canadian
remember which one is the biggest. Like, so how far is the severed go? And I think they should, you know, you don't know. It's up in the air right there, because he can just, hey, this is the world's biggest waterfall, and they're gonna believe it. So they know what a waterfall is, but they can't remember any other one. But this one,
what's that movie with Jim Carrey with something of the spotless mind, where
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Eternal Sunshine, and they go in and they're able to extract out only certain things.
Yes.
So they could probably maybe leave certain, you know, obviously let's leave them their reading and writing and speaking skills and eating skills or whatever, and then just take away any understanding of the outside world.
I don't know why this interests me so much, but to imagine the experiments before they finally got it. There were many experiments on taking away.
Maybe that's what happened to Gemma. Yeah,
possibly.
I don't know. Pete, what do you think about the whole severed procedure, that they're obviously they have a technology where they will leave them their life skills?
Whenever I did the recap for season 1 that I put out, I looked into this pretty, like, because I didn't really understand how it worked either. And I wasn't sure that, like, I wasn't sure if they understood how it worked. You know what I mean? Like, if it was just sort of vague and that they thought they would just be able to play around with it.
You figure it out as they go.
Yeah, what I found whenever I looked into actual memory, and I came through some different posts people put on, you know, on Reddit and different things, but in long-term memory, it's split up into 2 ways. It's like your explicit and your implicit. Like, the implicit would be like your subconscious, right? In the explicit, that breaks up again, and that would be like, you have things that you learned, like knowledge, you know, things that you learn as a child, just facts and concepts, like, you know, whatever. But then you also have episodic memory that's in there. And that's things that you learn based on experience, through experiences that you had. So that's the part that Severance removes, is the episodic memory, the part that is your everything that's coupled with an experience,
not like how to brush your teeth or wipe your butt or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Because when you learn how to brush your teeth or tie your shoes or something like that, it doesn't really matter who taught you how to do it necessarily, or like what you were wearing at the time, or what it smelled like in the room, or any of those things. You know, it's just a functional thing that you can do and you can repeat. And so, you know, obviously one of the questions that comes up is like nature or nurture whenever you think about the difference between an innie and an outie. And that's where experience fits into that thinking as well, right? Because the experiences you have can make you, like if you have two twins that are basically the same and you grow one up in an environment that's completely different, they can become wildly different, you know, whereas if they were, yeah. So that's sort of like, that's the easy way to remember. Is this like, is this something that was something I learned because of how I experienced it, like feelings, you know, are involved with it and tied to the memory. The innie wouldn't have that.
Yeah, that's really fascinating, because that makes me think then, like, so if you go to play the guitar, if you just know how to play the guitar and you're like,
you should be able to still do it.
You still should be able to do it, but you wouldn't have any memory of learning how to play the guitar.
You'd have to remember that you knew how to play guitar.
You'd have to, yeah. So, well, someone could hand it to you and you could, you know, I don't know.
And we kind of see that with Herb a bit too, right? Because he can draw, like he could draw Bert's face. Like an innie really it's not like his innie had drawing lessons, right? Like that's something he brought with him into the office.
That's a good point.
The interesting part is, like talking about Herb, is the way that their subconscious is shared. That's a shared space, and that's why they can't sleep. And that's what he was trying to do, was send him a message through sleeping. So, and he did, I guess, in episode 4, whenever he explained, you know, somehow that idea of her being an Egan came through in his dream when he fell asleep in the snow.
Yeah, so that's where the two severed halves can meet in a dream. Like it's almost like an astral plane or something.
Well, there's actual scientific studies in our world right now that they believe that can happen, and that they're experimenting on now, that people can send messages to each other through dream when they're in the REM mode of dreaming and stuff. So I'm sure that
yeah, no, I've heard that too.
The Inception experiments. Interesting.
I've heard that. That's true. So I don't know if we have anything else to talk about. Does anybody else have anything they want to talk about? Or anyone in the chat have a question?
If you want to chat, you know, on Teflon TV for Issues Guy, we take live phone calls for a little bit. I don't know if anyone else is interested in actually speaking to Heidi, Pete, or Phil live. We could put the phone number in the chat, and we can give you about 15 minutes to call in. You guys, you know, keep it quick. Call in and say some stuff, and don't be crazy, all right, and get blocked.
Yeah, Irene is asking them, why did they let them sleep on the Ortbo?
It's a good question.
Mm-hmm. It is a good question.
Is that the first time that they had ever slept?
That was the first time they ever had a night's sleep. Yeah. I mean, we saw Herb doze off at work, but otherwise they have no experience with sleep at all.
And we didn't get Dylan's perspective. And we just saw Mark wake up, and, you know, we don't know if he actually slept or not.
Yeah,
it's interesting what you're saying about the memory.
Lily keeps asking about the supplemental reading and reading materials. I think there was something, the Lexington letters or something, Pete. So she's talking
the
about?
Lexington letter is in they released that and it has the MDR too. You can get that if you look on any of my videos, and there's free links to get that, to download that in all my Severance videos. Yeah,
like I found at one point, I'm sure it's out there readily, is the brochure guide, like for, I think, outies going to work, like how to dress, like how to, you know, behave, that type of thing. I guess when you go, like the brochures for the outies, because they're the ones picking out the clothes and everything, I guess. So I found that online at one point, like maybe 3 years ago.
You want to drop the number in the chat real quick and give these people?
I'll pop it in if anyone wants to call in.
We'll give you 15 minutes or so to call in and say hi to Heidi and Pete and Phil the Issues Guy. You know, 781-990-8509. I should know it by heart by now. That's the whole time I use it. 781-990-8509 is the number to call in if you have a question or a comment, or just want to say how great Heidi looks, how wonderful
Tony
are, and Phil, we need that cowbell.
I got a cool shirt and a cowbell because Tony
needs more cowbell, Phil.
Oh, the other thing I was gonna, this is just something I had in my list here, the Garuka pun, which Milchek said in, like, he said it, that Swedish word. I looked it up. It's Garuka pun.
I thought you were gonna say Veruca Salt. Like I thought you were gonna say, like, oh, I want it all.
Garuka pun, and it means the gray coat. Pete, do you know what I'm talking about? It has an umlaut over it.
Yeah, that was another thing that I was having a hard time sorting out without subtitles. Like I spent a long time figuring out what that was.
Oh,
and
thanks,
then,
Jackie.
And then it turned out to be something that they just put in the subtitles whenever they came out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the whole thing was there was all kinds of discussion online, and I looked it up, and it means the gray coat.
I see it from this season. What was that word that what they were saying? The little kids were saying.
Oh, the kachui, the kachui.
Yeah. Kachui. I've heard.
And it means everyone's trying to figure out what it means.
This is the Greek God. This is the Greek word mixed with blah blah blah. No, they made it up.
Yeah, akui. That's it. Sorry. Yeah,
anakui,
not a
anakui. Was it anakui?
Yeah,
anakui.
Everybody had a theory with this damn anakui word.
We just made it up.
And then the other one that cracks me right up was elongated cruise voyage. Like that was hilarious.
It's like whenever you tell a kid that their pet is going to live on a farm upstate or whatever.
Yes.
There's a million pets living at that farm for the history of life. Okay, so overall point though, I do want to get, I guess, Severance 5 episodes coming in after in the second season. Coming off the first season, we mentioned this earlier, was considered by a lot, I wouldn't say one of the greatest shows of all time, but a lot of people look at that first season as just an excellent first season of show, like almost a perfect season. Coming into season 2, had a lot to live up for. I'm just curious of everyone, is it not a score yet because there's still 5 or for Pete 4 episodes left to go.
It does, Jackie.
Do you think this show is holding up to the bar it's set for season 1? I say definitely yes. I think for sure. How about you guys? What do you think? Do you think it's holding up to the bar it's set for season 1?
I haven't been disappointed. I'm just as engaged now as I was.
Me too.
In the first season.
Yeah. I think it's gonna be fun to go back and, like, when the whole season's done, go back to the beginning of season 2 and watch it just to see the whole arc and how it works.
It's on the level of like The Wire.
You don't know that till a show's over. Game of Thrones taught us one thing, Tony. It's don't put a show on the scale yet until it finishes. The shows don't belong there till it sticks the landing. Vince Gilligan did it twice. One of the
greatest season 1s.
Yeah, it's right up there with
of all time. I would say of all time.
It's hard to track. It's hard to like, genre comes into it too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this is
fair.
Like, one of the things that The Wire was so good about The Wire was that it was real. You know what I mean? Like, that was about our time and people who lived in it. This is sci-fi, so you know what I mean. Like, it's going to depend on your sensibilities, I guess, of whether it's going to hit the same way. It doesn't go for the same thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's the drama is here. Like, I think it is a good job. I think it becomes a good drama, and the characters are characters I care about, but it's just kind of different than something that's, so straightforwardly, a human drama like the Wire, like a lot of the classics, I guess, that you would think of as the best shows that sort of set the bar for everything.
By the way,
I'm a huge sci-fi fan, so it's like, for me, I'm definitely like, that's in my wheelhouse. But I don't know that I would think it would be for everyone else.
What would we say sci-fi like shows that would be the greatest sci-fi shows of all? Obviously, we say
Next Generation.
Next Generation, Phil. Yes, you say Star Trek. I mean, would you say Battlestar Galactica, Phil? Would you say the original Battlestar Galactica? I liked it. I like Buck Rogers too, so maybe that's
Buck Rogers is my favorite show, Tony.
The Expanse is definitely up there.
It was when I was 10. It was my favorite.
I will say the Orville should be in a conversation because the Orville was
the Orville's great.
It's underrated. I wouldn't call it greatest, but it's an underrated damn show.
Yeah.
But Pete, what kind of sci-fi? What would be some of your favorite sci-fi shows? Quantum Leap. That's another one for me. Quantum Leap.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was just talking about this with Quinn last week. The thing that's always been tough about sci-fi TV for me is that I read so much sci-fi, and it's so much better in your imagination. You know what I mean? Like, it's a difficult thing to pull off. Like, we're just now getting, I think, to a point where you can get things that are as good as what you know.
1 second, KP. Oh, keep going, Pete. Sorry.
I think, you know, the Expanse is probably one of my favorites. Like that was something that I covered and watched. I think I would put that up there as a complete show. That's the one that I would say would be my favorite.
We have a caller. We have our keep it tight, KP. We got our good buddy KP. Welcome to the show, KP.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Good evening. Good night. Everybody's chat. Everybody's good. So I just have one question.
Do it.
Because again, I kind of did a speed run through the first season and the first 4 episodes. So I'm kind of seeing all this for the first time. What the hell is Project Cold Harbor? What is that about? Do you have answers to that?
We will hit up on that. Thank you so much, buddy. We love you. We'll talk to you next time. So it's a good question. We didn't really get into our thoughts on what that actually is. What do you guys think Project Cold Harbor is?
Tony, do you have an idea?
I think it's when you look at the thing, I think it's the storage of the bodies, of the dead bodies, whether it's Mark's wife that's down there, that they're trying to use that to use AI to take over the memory and everything. That's what I believe that they're doing down there. I think that they're trying to get AI to be lifelike and have a lifelike quality about it that would be that of Dieter, I would say, but people will call it Kier. And I think that's what they're doing down there. But when I look at Cold Harbor, it sounds like, storage to me. So I think they'd be storing some type of bodies down there, whether it's Mark's wife or others.
I don't know. What about you, Pete?
Like I said at the beginning, I'm enjoying that we're getting to the point where these questions about, like, is it Heli or is it Helena? Was it a simulation, the Ortbo and things like that, they're sort of cleared the space to start thinking about this stuff. And I think we mentioned it on the stream you were on, Heidi, where I was saying that I've really keyed in on Devin's Occam's razor comment. Like that's something that it's something I do in general, is just try to ground my theories. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like a wild theory caster much, which is, maybe a detriment to as far as like, making that kind of content or whatever. But like the thing about as the season's been progressing, I'm thinking more about it as maybe maybe it's just the next iteration of the Severance chip. Like it's the next generation, because that's what a corporation does, right? We know that they have other applications they want to use it for, right? Like we saw the woman who used it for pregnancy, and there's obvious military implications, which is like this is an alternate timeline or history or whatever, but like I imagine that government and military concepts are just as useful in that timeline as they are in ours. You know what I mean? So that's what I've been kind of thinking about, like, is that it might not really be about Gemma as a human being, but like if Gemma's important and then we know Mark's important because of their relationship, well, maybe something about working with her and Mark is that they're going to have this different kind of chip, because we know that they're basically balancing tempers whenever they're moving the numbers into the bins or whatever. That stuff all seems pretty straightforward as far as like as much as we know now. And so like if the chip could do more than what it does now, and that would somehow be effective for the company as far as making them more money, then I think that there's something there. Now, then the other layer would be that there is this cultish family that has their own legacy and things that they're thinking about that aren't necessarily like they go hand in hand with what the company does, because the company gives them money and power or whatever, but it could get a little bit weirder from there.
They've shown so many like animatronics in this show.
Yeah.
So many, constantly, over and over. And it just would lead me to believe that you know, when you look at the with the words that are going in there, that they're really trying to bring these people back to life, and it could be easily these CEOs that they're down there like Ted Williams in these things, and they're trying to get these people back. It would be easy for me to see them going that route, whether they do or not. But it would just be, I mean, Cold Harbor. This is Harbor storage, and they're storing these bodies of these people here until they can actually bring them back to life to do what they were trying to do and everything. So who knows? But it would make sense to me that it would be something like that.
I like how someone in the chat said refining Mrs. Casey. I mean, I think Pete has a very sensible response to that. It could be, you know, sort of fine tuning the chip and all of that. I'm going to go completely insane and say it's, you know, recreating and rebuilding Mrs. Casey's personality or something to do with that. Cause it seems like the more Mark sort of adjusts the numbers, he gets extra flashes of her, but I don't know if that's associated or that's just dealing with his mind's recombining. So it's hard to say because there's a lot going on, and that's what's amazing about the show and the universe that they've created here. They've created something that can go very innocuous, very small, and go very big too. And I think both would be naturally sort of organic, but you guys are right. It's most likely Ben Stiller is a no bullshit kind of guy, and he's going to give it to you on the nose. And he's also going to give you something and make you feel uncomfortable about it. Don't forget what he did with the End of the Cable guy, where sort of cut it off before you got a response. He likes Andy Kaufmaning the audience to a certain extent. So we may feel elements of that throughout as well. So.
And Glue Guns keeps bringing up a point about Walt Disney. I can't, but she could express like, this was something that was done with Walt. There's like a rumor or whatever about Walt Disney actually doing this and everything else. And this would be something that, you know, and that could be a situation going on here like that too.
And they do have underground tunnels at Disney. I had a friend who worked at Disney World. She went at Epcot Center.
Quick story. When I got hurt at Disney World and I like got my knees stuck in a little fence, and within 5 seconds of getting stuck in there are people that came up from the ground, like on elevators from the ground next to us, like Disney soldiers, like with like saws, and they sawed me out, handed us some free passes and said, sorry, and walked away. It was like the craziest experience.
Oh my God, you're kidding.
Not even joking. It was like, I was probably like 10 or 11 years old, and like they came up from the ground and they like looking like to me as a 10-year-old, looking like the Ghostbusters. You know, like they're all dressed in like, you know, here's free passes to Disney World. See you later. Goodbye.
Wow.
I got myself.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking also like Amway, kind of like, which is more multi-level marketing, but it had that bit of a cultish type of thing about it. So all these, or Kellogg's was weird too. I don't know if anyone's read a little bit about Kellogg's.
Well, that came up when you talked about, you know, the Dieter story, the masturbation angle on that.
Yeah, exactly. And they would have weird diets, and they would, I don't know, they did all kinds of strange experiments and stuff, like pretty horrific.
Like I don't know that much about the Kellogg's. I watched the movie Road to
Wellville, yeah.
So that's mine's based on that.
So I'm sure that they've gathered it from several different stores. You know, and I was talking about also IBM, like a lot of the look of the show is kind of very IBM, like 1950s, mid-century IBM.
And everything looks like an iStore too, with everything on.
Why are they doing it that way? Why are they doing that? And then having the 70s cars. I mean, there's a reason.
The writer did say something about it. It's in Wikipedia if you look it up. Like it's quoted there about, I think maybe he wanted people to feel a little unsettled. I'm not exactly sure. Like he is kind of challenging the audience a little bit at times. He's talked about, so. But
you got the Superman payphones out there.
Yeah, totally. Superman payphones.
I totally appreciate it. I dig all of it. I think it's awesome.
I love the pay. I grew up with the payphone, so I love the payphone. I love seeing them. I love it. You know, it's a great thing to see. But you know, those things are also not impervious, but it was very hard to wiretap those payphones back then. You know, very hard. So when Irv is on that, do you think Irv's talking to someone or he's not talking? I think it's a possibility that he may be not talking to somebody.
That's interesting. I like that I like that idea. I actually had that in my notes here. Who's he talking to?
You know that there's a popular theory that it's Cobell that he's talking
Yeah,
to?
somebody else
Oh,
wrote that.
Because usually
I don't know
it's
how I
someone
feel
else-
about it, but I've seen it.
Because usually, again, if we're going with the most obvious thing in shows, it's usually another character we know rather than a new character being introduced. And who could it possibly be? Who haven't we seen for a while? So it would, on that sense, make logical sense. In that way, it would make logical sense.
It's funny. Someone was saying Cobell's car is actually from the 80s. It's like a rabbit or something, isn't it? And actually,
Volkswagen
Ben
Rabbit,
Stiller
yeah.
was just like laughing about it. I saw him on a podcast. I think some of that stuff they just do just to mess with us.
Yeah.
Like he
That's what
was
I'm
just
saying.
laughing.
He loves,
Well, it's a white rabbit. Like
yeah, wouldn't it be funny if we got our white rabbit?
chasing the white
Yeah.
rabbit.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
You're right. Chasing the white rabbit. So maybe there's something to that.
I
But he
was
was
thinking-
laughing about it. He thought it was hilarious. So
Yeah, just to go back real quick to what they're doing with Cold Harbor and the because what Phil said about refining Miss Casey, I don't think that necessarily is different than what as far as like what could the Severance chip do that would make it better for them, for their purposes, right? And if you think about Miss Casey, like she really had a flat affect and like seemed emotionless in a way that the other innies didn't. So if that's the sort of thing that they're doing is they're removing her emotional response, that would be the kind of thing I'm talking about, like as far as like the next iteration of the thing. But the other thing before we go, I wanted to ask you, Heidi, because I'm kind of after this episode, after episode 5, one of the things I was most hung up on was the cult of Kier and that those things that we're talking about. And I was just wondering about Mr. Drummond and like his wardrobe and things that they're doing there. If there's anything you pick up on with the costume.
I don't think if he's wearing a 3-piece suit. I have to double check, but his
his hair is obviously
he's wearing a
hair
toupee, right?
is amazing. He has like sort of, I feel like his clothing, his look is sort of 1970s. I don't know if anybody else got that vibe. Like actually, Natalie is kind of 1980s. Like I think her dresses are contemporary, but they have an 80s feel.
What's his name?
Mr. Drummond.
So I'm gonna say
What you talking about, Willis?
He's the well, they don't have their no, they do have their bodyguards, but I think he's like a very higher up.
Yeah.
He has the same hairstyle as the dude from Goodfellas who gets choked out by Robert De Niro, the wig guy, the guy with the wig.
That was a hairpiece, right?
Yeah.
Murray.
Yeah.
Murray.
Yeah.
Sounds Murray.
Yeah, I don't know why this guy, he kind of reminds me of there's a show where there's a guy who's a doorman. Maybe it's like and that's what he kind of reminds me of, the doorman on this 1970s show I used to watch. I can't remember which one it is. But it might have been like Mary Tyler Moore or something. But anyway, he's just, I don't know, he feels like he's out of another era to me. And if I recall, his clothes are kind of like brown and tweedy, perhaps.
Well,
very
this
sensible.
is what he was wearing in the scene, right there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So actually, it's a darker suit. It's actually a darker
that's right. That's the same scene, right? Where is it?
Mm-hmm.
This is
I think that's from episode 2.
That's
this is a different
on Natalie.
Yeah, I felt like he was wearing brown
because
like
Natalie had her hair tied back whenever she had the scene.
Yeah, I'm sorry, this is a different episode.
I can't remember what he was wearing. Oh, maybe I have a picture of it. Let me see if I have one. No, I don't have one of.
It's funny.
I have one of Miss Casey. Like she's wearing the Lumen pin.
I have another picture of Mr. Drummond right here.
Oh, you did?
We got Mr. Drummond right here.
I know that's the original Mr. Drummond.
Oh, well, sorry, wrong
Speaking
one.
of the 70s, that's probably where Ben Stiller got it from.
What kind of collar is she wearing, Heidi? That Miss Casey.
That's like a Peter Pan kind of collar. It's very It's very retro. It's like 1950s, mid-century.
This is it, Heidi. This is, I think, the one he was wearing.
Oh yeah. So actually, no, it is a 3-piece suit, though, isn't it?
Looks like it.
Yeah, but that hairstyle, oh my god.
Yeah, I guess it's not a tight.
Great character.
It's crazy. It's got a side part.
Oh my goodness, my hair probably looks like that if it was short.
And I don't know how tall that actor is, but I feel like he's quite tall. Like when they show him, He feels
He
very
feels imposing, if nothing
Yeah,
else,
imposing.
right?
Yeah.
Certainly does.
They are so like the thing they try to put out there about everyone who's upper management is so refined, like that they're so calm, cool, collective.
Yeah,
Like
so much
every
better.
one of them. That's why I want to see Milchek just lose his mind. He's like, motherfucker, fuck all you.
Oh man.
I wait for it to come.
Don't you think they're kind of leading up to that? It seems like he's ready to break.
Oh, you know what? Maybe
Yeah, I
it
was
was
gonna
the
say,
Jeffersons. There was, it wasn't on the Jeffersons. They had like a white doorman.
Yes,
Maybe
Ralph.
that is what I was thinking of. Yeah, there's
Ralph.
this like he's very straight white doorman.
Yes, Ralph was the doorman. We always
Yeah, I was
have
just
his
gonna.
hand out.
I need to get going pretty soon, but
Yeah.
we haven't even really touched on Milchek at all, and that was
haven't?
another thing that was really interesting in this episode for me was what's going on with Milchek.
Yeah. And I mean, it's interesting to see him from the standpoint of watching him fail. You know, he's trying and everything the way they were saying to him and interacting with him, that his abilities to try to be nice, to placate everybody wasn't working. And his urgency when they tell him not to use big words, you were saying that earlier, Heidi, he doubles down on it. His influences. I think he's heading for a big fall this season. And I said this earlier, and I think Patricia Arquette's going to have the weapon in her hand and slam the fist. She's the one that handles him towards the end of the season.
Yeah, it's because, like you said, they're definitely hinting that he might be a kinder, gentler version of the cultist, but he's still a cultist at heart and a company man. So it'll be interesting to see if the climax for him is that he sides with the company ultimately. You know what I mean? Because I think with giving him the completely tone deaf paintings and everything else, like all the injustice of like just the way that he sort of like the layers of like just ways that he's overlooked and not really appreciated in that system. Like you would think that obviously he's going to turn, he's going to help the innies, and he's going to do something crucial in that way. But at the same time, the other side of the story would be pretty compelling too, if he just swallows that all, like we all have had to do when we work jobs like that, and just do the job, you know what I mean? So that he can keep it or whatever.
I know we have to wrap up, but we do have one last call. Area code 330. What's going on?
Hey, this is the real Rebel Eric.
Hey, Rebel.
I just had two questions. Do you think that, I mean, is it with Mark? He worked for Lumen, right? Like before he got Severance, right? And do you think that Irvin is talking to another competitor company? And I'll drop off and let you answer.
Thank you, my friend. So was Mark working for? I don't think he was working.
No,
for
he was a professor.
Yeah, Mark only has worked as Severed. Irv is the one that we think worked there before. I mean, Irv's on the LinkedIn that they have for Irv. He worked there for 9 years, but he's only been Severed for 3. So there might be something else there, but as far as I know, Mark, he went in as a Severed employee right from the beginning and has no history beyond that.
Yeah, him and Gemma, I think both. I can't remember where they taught, but I think they worked at the same university.
And
it's where he met Regabi in the first season. That was part of the university.
There is a competitor company.
Yeah, history professor.
Right? There is.
Yeah. That's a good idea. That's another. I think that there's definitely a chance that there's competitors trying to sabotage whatever.
Someone said there was something about that in the Lexington letters.
Yeah, there was some implication of that.
I thought it was also interesting, obviously a different episode, but when Dylan interviews with the door company, seeing other companies' perspectives of Lumen. So there's definitely a Slugworth, like a competitor that wants to understand and get the chip and get one up on them and do all that. So that was one of my favorite scenes of the season, actually, with
really good.
Dylan interviewing at the door company.
It was that scene made me laugh because my mom used to work for a door company. And when I was like, now her doors were exterior doors, so they didn't have the pocket door,
How old?
Dylan's favorite.
How old were you when you knew that he loved doors?
Yeah, how old were you when you knew he loved doors?
And also he asked him, like, he likes, was it semi-gloss?
Yeah, that was
Semi-gloss finish.
that was the cherry on top. Was
The
that,
Cheerios.
And to go
that's
to go
hot.
to
He was like that. He's talking about doors, and he's like, "That's hot."
And also
you know?
that they look alike. The actor, actually, that actor who played him, like that looks like him. He's
But
pretty
what was
successful
important about
comedian.
that scene, with how hilarious it is also connects to what we've been talking about all night about the way that people that aren't severed look at the severed like they're just second class idiots, and you know, like there's something wrong with you. I won't hire you. You were severed. Ooh, you know, like that kind of vibe. I mean, it was hilarious, but there was also some meaning behind it as well, which could be a subtitle of this entire show. That's hilarious, but there's some meaning behind it.
Phil,
too.
you kept showing Milchick dancing and everything, and he was kind of like just going behind Dylan, and it made me think about how many times has Milchick just gotten right in someone's face. Like he just, like we were talking about this, I think when I was on your channel, Pete, about, I said that one stare down that he has with Irving at the end of the last episode. It's just like, and those guys, when they were acting, they must have just lost it. Just, you know, having to be that close to each other.
I'm sure they broke more than once in that.
Well, I know Pete's got to go. We want to keep him all night, all day. I'm sorry, he's got breakfast, got families.
Yes, he does. Yes, we're gonna let him go.
I'm gonna get up early to myself. I guess.
This was so fun, you guys. Thank you so much.
It was cool.
Why
don't we go around and everyone can say a little something about themselves, and then, you know, and then we'll say goodbye. My mom needs to go to bed.
I'm Phil. I'm 5'10", 185. No, I'm Phil the Issue Guy. Thank you so much for you guys all having me here to babble with you. If you want to hear more of my silliness, check out Phil the Issues Guy, and yeah, that's me.
And Phil, I put your Twitter and I put your YouTube channel below.
Thank you.
So people can follow you.
Please.
Tony, you want to go next?
I'm the Don Tony Teflon. My channel is Teflon TV. Phil is always on my channel. Me and Phil have podcasts and everything else together, so we're always on there rocking together. If you want to, you know, go into the rabbit hole with the Don Tony Teflon, we gonna be there. You know, check us out on Teflon TV and also at Issues Guy, Phil the Issues Guy channel. You know what I mean? We'll be there the whole time and everything. Heidi, you know we love you.
I love you guys back. Thank you so much.
It was really good meeting you. It was a great time.
You
know,
yeah. I hope you guys can, like, you know, because you have a lot of the same tastes and shows, and so I thought this would be good. Pete, what about you? You have lots coming up on your channel?
No, I'm right now. I'm just all Severance. Like, there's a couple of shows that, like, I did Yellow Jackets last time. I decided not to because.
Did you guys all watch the first 2 episodes?
I did watch the first 2.
Yeah, they're pretty good. They're pretty good.
Yeah, they come out on the same day, so that's like really difficult for me.
Yeah, because somebody was asking if we're going to be covering Yellow Jackets, and I said I thought maybe Pete was, but I guess nobody's covering Yellow Jackets.
I'm going to do like White Lotus tomorrow. I'll drop.
Oh, the White Lotus is awesome.
Yeah, I watched that with my wife the other night too, and
I might check in some Yellow Jackets a couple of times through the season. I don't think I'm going to do every episode, but I might do like every few episodes. I'll do after the next one, and then like every couple, see how it goes. I thought especially episode 2, I thought was kind of felt more like season 1.
Oh, great. Okay.
Episode 1 was a little kind of getting things back, but I thought episode 2 kind of got things going in a good direction for Yellow Jackets.
Yeah, I was in the same. That would say pretty much the same. Like, it was hard. It was a hard show for me to cover the first time just because there's so much stuff going on, and you know, like it just takes a lot of. It just takes a lot of time. Like there's just a lot.
Yeah,
like I enjoyed it.
Like weird mysteries going on and alternate stuff, and it's weird.
But for like how my brain works, like it's not one of those things where I could just be like, oh yeah, this happened, that happened, blah blah blah. You know, like I just found myself in rabbit holes all the time. So it just didn't line up right. Maybe like you said, I'll do something later. Like same with the White Lotus. Like I enjoy the show. I made videos about it before, but maybe after Severance is over, I might do some stuff on that. I'm not sure. I just wanted to. There was some super chats and things here, and like I couldn't tell how that.
I don't know. I'm not sure whose channel they're on.
That's what I was saying. I didn't know.
It
was all kind of confusing to me.
There was Real Rebel Eric.
Yeah, real
Is it
rebel,
possible?
rebel Eric dropped $2 there. If it's got like the link on your thing, that means it's to a different channel, right?
Okay.
And everything. So if it's on your channel, it would just be the regular super chat. But if it's got a link,
Yeah.
that means it's linked to your channel and stuff.
So is it possible the innings are really, or the innies are really outies? I thought that was actually, I saw that earlier. I thought that was kind of an interesting comment.
They have to have some type of, it has to be some twist that we're not seeing that they have to come up with, you know, in the end of it, whether Mark was a spy the whole time or something. They got to do something, you know, whether, I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be something there that some twist that we don't know. So maybe the innies are the outies of all time. Who knows?
Cases, this show reminds me of a Stanley Kubrick movie. Stanley Kubrick. Oh yeah, I'm sure. I
Like
don't know. Maybe
Clockwork
they're
Orange?
like maybe they're using some of his techniques, or The Shining, or something. Maybe they're. It's
I love how
possible
much Stephen King hates The Shining, but I love it. It's a great movie.
I
Stephen
love
King
it too.
hates it. He's like, oh, that's bastardization of my work. I'm like, yeah, but it's a good movie, dude.
Yeah.
It's better than Maximum Overdrive, Stephen. Go direct another movie. Come on.
It's better than Lawnmower, man.
Yeah, it's not as good as Misery. Misery is probably the best Stephen King movie or Shawshank Redemption.
No, it's not Shawshank Redemption, bro.
But Shawshank is a weird one because he wrote the short story and then it was sort of adapted by Darabont.
The same with what was it? Stand by Me.
Stand by Me, the body.
One like
that.
Whereas Misery is sort of a 1-for-1, but I agree. If we're going anything he's touched, it's got to be Shawshank. But if we're going direct,
could be considered the greatest.
I like The Running Man, and they're remaking it.
Right, I'm worried about the remake, but I agree with you, Tony. It could be viewed as one of the greatest movies. But
it could be the greatest movie of all time. Could be Shawshank.
Which one?
Shawshank Redemption.
Oh yeah, amazing movie.
It's definitely at the table. We already got Kay Young. The show reminds me of Stanley Kubrick. What do we think of Devin? I think we already talked about that too. I think we all generally say we like Devin. Devin's a real character. I think that's all the super chats. I think.
Yeah.
Oh wait.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks to the people who did it. That was the main thing.
Thank you, super chatters.
Thank you, everyone. I don't know who. Yeah, because we're sharing channels tonight. So this one, well, Tony, you got a couple of memberships gifted, so that's awesome.
Dita, thank you, Dita. You know, he's supported the channel and stuff.
That's awesome.
I think maybe because I told him he's the star of the show and everything else.
Aw. Well, we should let everybody go because I have to go to bed.
Yeah.
Because I have to work tomorrow. But anyway, this has been so great. I'm glad that we had the four of us. I've never had Phil on, so this is really wonderful, Phil, to have you.
I'm sorry
here.
I talk a lot. I'm sorry.
No, I love it. I love it. And Pete, this is my second time having you again. I hope we can do it again when there's a show we love together. And of course, Tony, woohoo, Tony. I'm so glad we've been. I did my first stream of the year with you, and then I just did this one, so we're on a roll.
Yes, Heidi,
we'll have to do one.
We have been rocking for years, Heidi.
We sure have. Well, I'm hoping when the Gilded Age comes out, you will come on here and do some gossip with me.
Every week we will do. I told as soon as they start shooting, I will go out here to Troy and I will take pictures and do all that. I'll go right out there.
That'll be awesome.
And I'll get over.
Yeah, Pete. I don't know if you watch the Gilded Age, but Tony lives in the area of New York where they shoot it, so he gets to.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Oh no, not at all, Moni. You didn't. By the way, everyone in the chat has been amazing tonight. So anyway, we'll do this again. I'm not sure if it will be on Severance, but I hope everyone's been enjoying the show. I absolutely love it. I kind of get really excited when it's Thursday night. But anyway, so thanks a lot, and we'll see you again soon. Take care.
Take care.
Everyone's contacts are in the chat, by the way. Thank you. Bye.